Chapter 8:22. I want to make a deal with the person in charge here. But, if you want to make a deal, you can just do it in this hall. Qin Yu's eyes were calm. This is a big deal. You can't bear the responsibility. Call the person in charge here. Soon, the person in charge of the Rongtian trading house appeared. He was extremely fast. He looked like a gentle scholar and didn't look like a martial artist. However, he wasn't weak either. He was also in the heavenly ethereal realm. If you don't mind, you can call me Mr. Rong. Although most people prefer to call me Old Rong or All-Seeing Eyes. All-Seeing Eyes was a very famous person. It was rumored that his eyes could see through everyone in the world. If there was something that he didn't recognize or know of, he would be able to immediately tell the origin of the item after taking a look at it. Coupled with his smooth way of doing things and his shocking strength, he gradually gained such a reputation. However, this reputation only spread within the Shang district. Qin Yu didn't care who was standing in front of him even if he knew who was standing in front of him. Countless great Emperor Rongtian had been defeated by him. Why would he care about a heavenly ethereal realm cultivator? The two of them entered the sealed room and sat opposite each other. Suddenly, a large pile of rare treasures appeared on the table. They were piled up into a small mountain. In the end, a pot Dharma treasure fell to the ground. Qin Yu didn't even bat an eyelid. He just let it fall to the ground. In the end, it was Tong Tianyen who recognized the origin of this thing at a glance. He hurriedly pulled it back, just before it fell to the ground. Such a treasure is very valuable. Do you know the origin of this heaven refining pot? You're simply wasting God's gift. Although the name was a little exaggerated, it could be used to refine all kinds of precious items in the shortest time possible. Moreover, it wouldn't lose anything. Therefore, it was very useful. Especially for some people, they were even willing to take out their entire fortune just to buy this pot. However, he soon became speechless. After taking a few more glances, he realized that there were quite a few treasures on the table. Compared to those things, the heaven refining pot was really nothing. There were simply too many treasures, and none of them were useless. This was the entire collection of the profound Feather Emperor. Anything that could be collected by him was definitely not trash. Even the items with the lowest value often had their own unique effect. Not long after, the all-seeing eye could no longer see through the needles. He was holding one in each hand and another in each hand. Suddenly, he saw a picture. He slowly opened it. Then, he exclaimed in disbelief. It's the sky spill diagram. Tianyen diagram. He was so excited that his hands were trembling. It took him a long time to regain his composure. Qin Yu, on the other hand, did not reveal the slightest fluctuation from beginning to end. Tong Tianyen held the extremely precious sky spill diagram in his arms. His voice trembled as he asked incredulously, "Are you sure you want to trade all of these things?" However, under the expectant gaze of the all-seeing eye, Qin Yu slowly shook his head. Just as the leader's eyes dimmed, deciding to take as many as he could, Qin Yu suddenly spoke. The table here is too small. It can't fit all of them. Heavens! You actually have more. After realizing the meaning of those words, the all-seeing eye could not care less about his appearance. He did not even continue to maintain his refined appearance. He ran out and came back with a big table. It looked like it was casually pulled out from somewhere. However, the table was still quite flat. Most importantly, it was very big. It was so big that it was enough for one person to lie down on it. It's still a little small. Forget it, let's leave it like this for now. I should be able to let it go, albeit barely. To say that he was barely able to let it go was truly an extremely difficult thing to do. The all-seeing eye finally saw what it meant to pile up like a mountain. And it was countless treasures piled up like a mountain. Every single one of them was enough to make people fight over it. But now he saw a tall mountain of them. No matter how many times he scanned, he did not find a single piece of trash. Not a single thing was useless. All of them were valuable treasures. I'm afraid I can't take all of this alone. Do you want me to immediately? No. I'll tell the owner now. The Rongtian trading house moved faster than expected. Perhaps it was because of the benefits, or perhaps it was because of other reasons, but he soon met the owner of the trading house. Nantian, I've heard of your name long ago. It's only today that we finally meet. You are indeed extraordinary. He actually had the guts to use the name Rongtian. This trading house was also backed by Great Emperor Rongtian, and he was quite powerful. Nantian was a direct descendant of Great Emperor Rongtian. He was also quite valued. That was why the trading house was handed over to him. When he first heard about the challenge, he only felt that it was unbelievable. But now that he saw the person in front of him and saw those calm eyes, he only felt his heart palpitate. That feeling of danger seemed to be mixed with a sense of familiarity. You can deal with these things as you see fit. Change all of them into cultivation resources. If it's not enough, just throw them away. Throw them away. Throw away everything that's left. And from the start to the end, he did not reveal any fluctuations. Looking at the all-seeing eye, who was at the same level as him, he wanted nothing more than to throw himself into the pile of treasures. Even though they were at the same level, he gave off an unfathomable feeling. Nantian finally understood what that sense of familiarity was. Qin Yu's gaze and attitude gave him the same feeling as the great emperor. It was also the same feeling of danger. It was also the same feeling of not taking these things to heart, because with their level, there was no need for them to take these unnecessary things to heart. And now, this huge pile of treasures was obviously superfluous in the eyes of this young man who looked much younger than him. But our trading house has always been fair and just. Also, we can't take out such a huge amount of cultivation resources at the moment. Qin Yu seemed to have expected this, and he was already prepared. Then do me a favor. Let the entire 10 Directions world know about the battle invitation. Also, inform everyone of my location at all times. Every hour I'll reposition myself. The first one was still understandable, but the second one was incomprehensible to anyone. This was not a rush to die as many people had guessed. Instead, it was a kind of arrogance that Nantian could not understand. Chapter 8:23. As a heavenly god, he actually took the initiative to let everyone know his location after provoking so many major powers. He didn't know what to say. Qin Yu had already thought it through. He wanted to ascend to the heavenly god realm as soon as possible. He wanted to break through the remaining realms as soon as possible. It was too troublesome for him to find places to train himself. There were many people who wanted to find him. He was just providing them with an opportunity. Putting aside other difficulties, Nantian's biggest worry was how to accurately pinpoint the location of his target. No one knew how many regions there were in the 10 Directions world. No one could guarantee that they would be able to locate a person accurately among so many regions. Not even the great emperors. It was indeed a relatively troublesome matter. However, it wasn't like there was no solution. You can contact your people at any time, right? You're saying that we should send someone to follow you. That's not a bad idea. Nantian thought that he had understood. However, he still didn't understand. Qin Yu just wanted him to have a way to contact the trading house at any time. Naturally, he would know the time. He would let everyone know his location at the right time. He would welcome challenges from the entire world. You're crazy. He didn't have any other thoughts other than that. An early-stage heavenly virtual realm cultivator dared to challenge 9 great emperors, 9 top forces. Moreover, these 9 top forces had existed for a very long time. Every great Emperor Rongtian who was challenged. They were all the most experienced people in the 10 Directions world. Any one of them was enough to make everyone respect them. Even those of the same realm had to look up to them. It doesn't matter if I'm crazy or not. What matters is whether you're willing to do this business. Are these not enough? If not, I have more bargaining chips. How about this? It was a palm-sized heart protection mirror. However, it was of high quality. It was even better than the other items on the table. A palm-sized item like this was enough for everyone under Great Emperor Rongtian to fight for it. Of course, this was only one of the better items in the dragon vein. However, it was definitely not the best, but the quality was not bad. Moreover, to Qin Yu, it was a piece of trash that had no use at all. But even so, in Qin Yu's eyes, it was just an ordinary item. Nan Tian still agreed without hesitation. Those things that were as tall as hills were enough for him to make a fortune. Let alone a way to contact him, even if Qin Yu wanted to leave. He wouldn't even blink an eye at a very important subordinate of his. Now that the deal is done, I will definitely fulfill your request. In any case, he was going to make a huge profit in the future. If those people wanted to get information from him, they would have to pay a hefty price. It was rare to see a business that was profitable on both sides. It was rare for him to meet such a person, so of course he wouldn't let him go so easily. However, he also knew that he had gained a huge advantage. Therefore, it was better to satisfy some other requirements as much as possible. Do you have anything else? Tell me all at once. We can also fulfill all of your small requests. By the way, I thought you might need this information, so I got someone to prepare it in advance. A set of information was placed in front of Qin Yu. There was a lot of information. Qin Yu and the dragon soul took a few glances at it and already had an idea in their hearts. This information was all about the 9 great emperors and the major forces under them. Moreover, it was already very detailed, including the most important people and the lives of these great emperors. Although some things weren't considered confidential, they weren't things that just anyone could find out. For example, the descendants of these great emperors. Generally speaking, except for some arrogant ones, they hid it very well. However, in this piece of information, there was even information about which person in a position was the illegitimate son of a great emperor. Everything was written clearly and clearly. It was already worth quite a bit. These things are indeed useful. The most important thing is that they are thoughtful. If they weren't, they wouldn't have gathered it so neatly. Moreover, this information was actually very valuable. In a way, it was even slightly more valuable than the pile of things that Qin Yu had given. However, they couldn't say that. After all, information could be sold repeatedly. As long as no one leaked it on a large scale, they could show this information to many people at the same time. Therefore, this information revealed more of a favor. They wanted to give Qin Yu this favor. As for Qin Yu, he also accepted this piece of information. After all, it was indeed useful to him. But owing a favor? That was impossible. After Qin Yu left, a small dagger was left on the seat. It looked dim. However, this was the characteristic of a treasure that concealed itself. It didn't look very eye-catching, and it was a little dusty, as if it had just been picked up from the ground. However, as long as it was pulled out, the sealed dagger would break out of the seal. He didn't even need to use any strength at all. With a casual wave, a blade light would appear. There was even a wisp of black mist lingering around the silver saber light. This was the dagger that Xiantian Shenzhen had used once. Not only was there a trace of demonic qi on it, but there were also traces of immortal blood. In the end, Xiantian Shenzhen refined it again and integrated the demonic qi and the immortal blood into it. Its nature had become very different. After Nan Tian obtained this dagger, he couldn't find anyone to return it to. In the end, he could only make a deal with the great emperor above him. As soon as he pulled out the dagger, the great emperor felt an aura from it. An immortal aura. Where did you get this dagger? There are traces of immortals on it. And the aura is extremely domineering. There's also a trace of tamed demonic qi. Its lethality is doubled. Nan Tian didn't dare to hide anything. He explained the cause and effect clearly word by word. After hearing this, the great emperor had an epiphany. There had never been such a coincidence in this world. The fierce and domineering aura that swept through the entire world and the immortal aura on the dagger came from the same source. You just need to do as he says. Remember, you must be careful with your words and actions. You must be perfect, and you can't do anything unnecessary. Nan Tian was rather shocked, but he didn't dare to ask more. Not long after, the Rongtian trading house brazenly posted a message. Qin Yu's dragon soul had now reached the edge of the Shang district's central area. Chapter 824. Whether they were from the Shang domain or not. Whether they were going to intercept him or not, they quickly rushed to the location after receiving the news. Indeed, many people saw Qin Yu's true appearance. Before this, most people had only heard of him. Although there were some portraits of him later on, none of them were as shocking as seeing him with their own eyes. It was more because of Qin Yu's magnanimity and his realm. Just when many people had just set off and hadn't even arrived at the location, Rongtian Trading House refreshed the location again. And this time it was also very accurate. The most important thing was that the time interval was exactly the same. It was almost exactly the same as the time they had agreed on. There was no difference at all. Qin Yu was found almost immediately. However, there were very few onlookers among the people who came this time. Looking for me? There are two kinds of people who come looking for me. Passers-by and enemies. Are you passers-by or enemies? The people who came looked at each other. Originally, they decided not to make a move and wait and see. At this time, they were not far from the Shang domain. They might even be from the Shang domain. There were no big sections. Most of them wanted to curry favor with great Emperor Rongtian. They didn't deliberately chase after him. We're here to look for you. That's right. You dare to challenge the great Emperor with the strength of a heavenly ethereal realm. Why don't you give up before things get out of hand? Why don't you come with us to apologize? It's not too late to regret now. Qin Yu, however, only looked at them calmly. Since they were not passers-by, they were enemies. If they were enemies, he would kill without mercy. There were heavenly ethereal realm experts and heavenly palace experts. But without exception, they all died. They didn't even have the ability to resist. Qin Yu was like a god of war who had descended to slaughter. None of the people under his hands could struggle or even resist. Even after killing so many experts, Qin Yu was still untainted by even a speck of dust. However, there were corpses all over the ground. All the onlookers couldn't help but be shocked and silent. Such strength was far from what they could provoke. They could only be glad that they didn't rush up and become one of the corpses on the ground. Similarly, many people were paying attention to what happened here. Many people would go to the Rongtian trading house to confirm if they had only heard about it. It seemed that everyone had tacitly agreed that if they wanted to obtain information about Qin Yu, they would have to go to the Rongtian auction house. Only by obtaining confirmation from the other side could they be considered to have taken the right path. In other words, everyone had to admit it and believe it. After that, he continued to report at a fixed time. Qin Yu and the Dragon Soul had always been together. Even if there were times when they were separated, it was also to separate the positions of the two people. Of course, Qin Yu and the Dragon Soul took the initiative to contact each other. The Rongtian auction house made a lot of money from this. Countless people wanted to get the most accurate information. More or less, they had to give them some benefits. Therefore, even if some of the original plans were changed, the location was made public to everyone without any concealment. They still made a lot of money in fees. Moreover, there would be no cost to this fee. Ever since he had shown his strength, he had been in a daze. Qin Yu and the Dragon Soul left peacefully. After walking through several regions, they didn't encounter anything similar to the previous incident. No one took the initiative to stop them. However, there were many schemes hidden in the dark. There's fallen immortal powder in the water. The roasted meat that had already been cooked was suddenly switched. There's a trap ahead. There's an ambush in the canyon. There were simply too many such incidents to count. However, none of those people appeared openly. His concealment was not bad. It would be too troublesome to catch all of them. Moreover, there were so many people that they couldn't catch all of them. Master, these people are too annoying. Why don't we not do the location? Anyway, if some people want to find us, it's not like they can't find us. Now we've attracted a group of annoying flies. Although they weren't harmful to them, it was too annoying to keep them by their side. Many things had happened along the way. However, there was no effective way to solve them all in one go. It was even a waste of energy to take them seriously. Don't worry about them. The real big fish should take the bait. Qin Yu did not really do anything on his way here. He did not do anything at all. He went to many places. He also met many people. All the clues that he had buried before. It was time to explode at this time. 1,000 soul lock. 10,000 bone banner. Earth evil dark dragon spell. There was more than one person lying in ambush, and all of them seized this opportunity to attack together. Qin Yu's current position happened to be a very easy place to set up an ambush. There was nowhere for him to escape to. There were even a few figures appearing in the sky above his head. Everyone looked at him as if he was a treasure. Catch him, don't let him run away. Lu Song, you and I catch him together. When the time comes, we'll split the benefits equally. I remember that you still owe me a favor. Join forces with me now. Hurry up. Almost everyone quickly took action, roping in all the people who could be roped in. Without exception, everyone rushed up at the same time, wanting to catch Qin Yu. Although the matter in the trading house was very secretive, the people involved were not the kind of people who would casually reveal information. But there was no such thing as an airtight wall in this world. Many people had seen Qin Yu and the Dragon Soul enter the auction house. After that, the auction house would be able to get the location of the two at any time. There was even a lot of good things of unknown origin. Those who were observant immediately guessed what was going on. In the end, the message spread, saying that the two of them had supreme treasures on them. Some even said that they had a complete dragon vein in their hands, as well as countless treasures. Although some people felt that this matter might not be reliable, many people believed it. Dragon Soul. After the Dragon Soul heard the order, it attacked at the same time. The two of them had long cooperated with each other, advancing and retreating with a sense of propriety. This group of people was not difficult to deal with. They could not even hurt a single hair on Qin Yu's head. It was impossible for the great emperor to run out and chase after them. Those who rushed out at this time were just some nameless people. The highest was only the heavenly palace, and they were not even as strong as the sea god palace's ancestor. Chaos Dragon Spear. Qin Yu's figure quickly flashed through the crowd. Everywhere he passed, everyone wailed and fell to the ground. Blood spurted out from their vital point. I'll fight it out with you. Chapter 825. There was a flash of blood-red light. Thump. Somewhere further away from Qin Yu's Dragon Soul, several people suddenly fell to the ground. Their cause of death was a large hole in their chest. Sacrifice to the heavens. Ancient evil god, please let me borrow your power. Wipe out all enemies and remove all obstacles for me. I am willing to sacrifice my flesh and blood, forever offering my everything. Suddenly, the world shook. A pitch-black gate slowly appeared. There was a rumble. It landed on the ground, stirring up a thick cloud of dust. A deep and mysterious power gradually spread from the depths of the gate. Several strands of black threads quickly ate up all the corpses on the ground at a speed that was hard to see with the naked eye. Even the living were attacked. Only Qin Yu's Dragon Soul was safe for the time being, but only for the time being. The unknown black threads floating in the air were still looking for all kinds of nutrient. They coveted Qin Yu's Dragon Soul very much and kept circling around him. And the people who caused all this couldn't escape bad luck. They were the first to be attacked. Caught off guard, they almost died with hatred. There were fewer and fewer living people. The remaining few people formed a small group and kept trying to stop the threads from spreading. But it's useless. These black threads should be from the ninefold God realm. But whether or not they're from the ninefold God realm, none of your methods can stop the black threads from spreading. As soon as he finished speaking, the black lines could indeed ignore all attacks. Whether it was swords, spears, swords, halberds, or various martial arts technique, they could penetrate all of them and quickly achieve their goal. They penetrated another person's body again. Dozens of unknown black threads quickly surrounded him and sucked him dry in just a few breaths. Another person died in an instant. The remaining people could only dodge. Qin Yu and the dragon soul, who were completely unattacked, became the target of everyone. How do you know that everything we're doing is useless? That's right. You're safe and sound, but we're all going to die. What right do you have to say that? If we can't survive, don't think you can live well either. Even if we die, we'll take one of you down with us. The remaining people had completely gone crazy. They died one after another. Even the withered corpses on the ground left a deep impression on them. No one could remain indifferent in the face of all this. In the end, they did not commit suicide in despair. Instead, they targeted innocent people who weren't affected. Qin Yu had expected all of this, so he didn't feel uncomfortable. These people were here to kill him. Whether or not the unknown black threads appeared, none of them would survive. Not a single one of them would survive. Because as long as he was here, he would not allow anyone to leave under his watch. You're going to die sooner or later, so why bother struggling? He should have thought of his own fate when they came to attack him, instead of wallowing in despair here. He was just hoping for a fluke and lost the bet in the end. He had always relied on his own strength to speak for himself. Since you are being attacked, I will not take the initiative to attack you. If I can take the initiative to run away, that will be fine. I can choose not to chase after you, but if you don't know what's good for you, then leave it to fate. The dragon soul was also ready to attack. However, he suddenly noticed that Qin Yu's movements were not very fast. He left a large part of his strength behind. After thinking about it for a moment, he understood why. It was because those unknown black threads were simply too strange. It was too strange. The timing of their appearance was captured. Just a powerful force was enough for them to be vigilant. Moreover, the person who summoned the black threads had said it clearly. He wanted to attack the enemy once. The person who was competing with that person for the treasure was the enemy. But how could the two of them not be the target of these black threads? Therefore, something must have gone wrong somewhere. These black machines were also targets that they needed to be vigilant of. Those people had already begun to make their move because the black threads were growing bigger and bigger. Now, they had occupied most of the place and were even about to surround them. And there was only one place without any black threads, which seemed to be extremely safe. That was where Qin Yu and the dragon soul were. Wherever they passed, the black threads would avoid them. The thick and heavy door kept emitting an ominous aura. As these people became more agitated, it seemed that the door opened a little. But no one noticed this. At present, their attention was on the people around them, as well as the black threads. Heavenly thunder. Heaven and earth 10,000 changes. Heaven and earth thunder law. Rootless floating water. Almost all of them used their trump cards. At a moment of life and death, snatching a safe place would definitely make all of them do their best. In comparison, Qin Yu and the dragon soul had to bear even more pressure. These people were no longer afraid of death, because retreating was also death. They would use their most powerful strength. They kept squeezing out their potential just to fight for that moment of rest. Such a large area. Attacks from all directions were quite difficult to deal with. Qin Yu put away the Chaos Dragon Spear and took out another weapon. Dragon God Ancient Seal. Heaven-swallowing dragon seal. A huge shadow pressed down. The people at the front were instantly crushed into meat paste. At this moment, the number of people left was less than a palm. Fresh flesh and blood. Countless black threads spread out in an instant. They wrapped around the fresh flesh and blood and retreated a moment later. Only yellow sand was left on the ground. Wherever the black threads passed, even weeds could not survive. It was so terrifying that the remaining few people did not even have the thought of resisting. There was only one thought left in their minds, and that was to escape. Only Qin Yu noticed that the threads had shrunk to a certain extent after they were retracted. And this was something that had never happened before. This door, Qin Yu looked at the door carefully again and suddenly felt that it was a little different. It seemed that this door had some unknown changes, and these changes would bring a lot of danger. But looking carefully, it seemed that there was no change from before, whether it was the pattern or the aura on it. It was exactly the same as before. Watch this door. Inform me immediately if there are any changes. Qin Yu could only instruct the dragon soul to watch this door first, but he still had to see the origin of those black threads. Although these black threads must have come out from this door. But it was not without something to restrain them. He released one move after another and tried again. There was a new discovery. Chapter 8:26. These guys were all afraid of the dragon aura. Or to be more precise, they were afraid of all the righteous aura between heaven and earth. And this point was quickly confirmed. No wonder none of the black threads approached them. It was not because they did not want to, but because they could not. It was so simple. Master, that door moved slightly, as if it's about to open. No one knew what was behind that door. Perhaps even the person who could summon this door did not know. Otherwise, he wouldn't have died amidst his unwilling wails. Just as he turned around, he saw with his own eyes that the door gently and weakly moved back a little. Accompanying the movement of the door was the painful wails of the remaining people. Ah! I don't want to die. Treasure. Some people could not think of anything before they died, while others could only beg bitterly before they died. Their minds were in a mess, and some people were still thinking about what they had been pursuing. The last few people also died, and the door was pushed back a little more. Suddenly, a black fog surged. It was like a gust of wind, but the strangest thing was that it was not accompanied by any sound. The leaves did not shake, but the area covered by all the black threads. Thick black fog had appeared, and it kept rolling out. Wherever it passed, it was like the effect of the black thread. Not a single blade of grass grew. 8 trigrams transforming into dragon. The powerful aura collided with the black fog. Soon, a part of the black fog disappeared, but it did not completely disappear. If it were the black threads from before. Under this move, not even the last bit would be left. But this black fog was more powerful. Even if the container could still crush it, it could still preserve a part of its strength. Qin Yu chuckled. Since using 30% of his strength could not achieve a satisfactory effect, then he would use more strength. What was so difficult about that? A dragon figure gradually condensed. Soon, its eyes flashed, and it roared and rushed toward the black fog. Countless rays of light bloomed. All the black fog was swept away. Even the wisps of black fog no longer existed under the illumination of this light. Creak, creak, it was as if someone was pushing a wooden door that had long been damaged. The door that changed along with the sound. It was already slowly opening and opening again. However, there was no way to open up more cracks. Another large amount of dense black fog flew out. It swept across the entire land, until everything on this piece of land had turned into yellow sand. The only ones left were Qin Yu and the dragon soul. However, these things did not interest Qin Yu. After clearing out one batch, another batch would soon appear. If this continued, there would be no end to it. Qin Yu only walked to the door, and there was no black fog wherever he went. The dragon's soul was not affected by the black fog at all. Although he loathed the thick black fog, he did not act rashly. As long as this door was left open, the endless black fog could not be removed. The recondensed 8 trigrams dragon shadow crashed into it. He could only shake it slightly. It was impossible to completely remove the door. Qin Yu had even noticed that after this move, Qin Yu's expression changed drastically. Cracks began to appear on the door. But he was not so naive as to think that as long as he broke the door would disappear. Righteous aura! Suddenly, he waved his hand. The shadow of a huge dragon vein appeared. There seemed to be countless dragons circling around it. An extremely vast and majestic bulge surged out. The entire land was enveloped by dragon aura. Such a powerful and majestic aura. It easily suppressed all the black fog. Even the door became transparent and blurry. A blurry face appeared on the pitch-black and heavy door. A large mouth that looked like it had been smeared with blood, appearing dark red. Its mouth full of fangs looked incomparably ferocious and faintly green. Other than fierceness and bloodthirst, there was no other emotion in its eyes. You are courting death. Just as he finished speaking, the figure of the dragon vein became clearer. The dragon aura became denser, and greed flashed through those ferocious eyes. In the end, it was completely covered by bloodthirst. You will regret everything you've done today. This is the god of darkness judgment on you. Qin Yu did not say any nonsense to him. He only used strength to prove that now was not the time for the other party to negotiate with him. At present, all the initiative was in his hands. You are not qualified to say such things to me now. Go and find your god of darkness. The blurry face on the door seemed to be even more resentful. I am the most devout believer of the god of darkness, and I have his bloodline. Those who go against the darkness will be punished in the end. Darkness will always be your companion, and blood will be your only burial. This was the last sentence left by the face on the door. After that, he had completely disappeared, along with the heavy black door. The dragon's soul was very disdainful. He clearly did not have the strength to resist at all, yet he still had the guts to be arrogant there. No matter what kind of existence the god of darkness was, he couldn't even tell the difference between the enemy and himself. He was really brainless. He can't be underestimated. Although everything I have done is already a heavy blow to him. But after all, that is something from the ninefold god realm. Maybe there really is a god. Qin Yu's eyes flashed with a touch of scorching heat. That was the ninefold god realm. Although he did not know if this title was true. But to have such a title, it was more or less a matter of strength. And he would soon step into that world and pursue a higher martial arts realm. Everything in the world so far could not meet his requirement. Even if he committed all kinds of crimes and plundered everywhere, it would still take a long time to achieve his goal. And he was already implementing the fastest way. Soon, he would be able to draw a full stop. After the two of them left, there were only countless dried corpses on the ground and rich dragon energy. As soon as those dried corpses came into contact with the wind, they instantly turned into dust and drifted in the air. A butterfly slowly flew over and landed on one of the dried corpses. However, the spot where it landed turned into dust in the next moment. The butterfly with pure white wings flew up again. And after the dust in the air completely dissipated, a few more people appeared on this land. They felt the extremely rich dragon energy in the air. Su En was sure that the previous rumor about the dragon vein must be true. Other than the dragon vein, what else could have such a majestic dragon energy? And it did not dissipate for a long time, lasting for a few days. Chapter 8:27. There were more and more people openly trying to stop him. As he walked, he was suddenly attacked. Hand over the dragon's vein. Heaven trapping net. As long as you hand over the dragon's vein, I'll let you go. Qin Yu forcibly broke through the shackles with his strength and showed him what true strength was. Even if he wanted to take something from him, he should at least ask about what he had done. No matter where he was, he never bothered to hide his identity and traces. There were many people like him who did not know the immensity of heaven and earth and came to rob him. He had only heard of his cultivation level. They did not ask much. Anyone who casually asked around would know how many Heavenly Palace realm experts had died at his hand. However, he did not encounter anyone with higher strength who came to provoke him along the way. When one reached a higher peak realm, they would know how to cherish their lives. Even if the gap between realms was very obvious, Qin Yu used blood to prove his strength along the way. No matter what, he had the strength to challenge a great emperor. Even in the eyes of many people, it was still unbelievable. However, even Heavenly Palace realm experts could not withstand more than a few moves from him. They did not even know what his trump card was. One person after another went to intercept him. Batch after batch of people disappeared without a trace. Great Emperor Rongtian did not seem to be a realm that could not be challenged. Qin Yu and the Dragon Soul also received the title of Invincible below Heaven Rongtian. All of this was something that no one had expected at the beginning. The few people who were challenged were even more frightened. They sent out countless people. They were mixed in with the passers-by who wanted to rob them and had other intentions. They either inquired about information, provoked them in public, or set up an ambush in an inconspicuous place. However, it had never worked. Even now, they only had one more piece of information than they had at the beginning. However, this piece of information was also completely useless. Qin Yu and the Dragon Soul received the title of Invincible below Heaven Rongtian. It was a huge problem for them. 10,000 years later, the few of them had passed. They gathered together again. This time, they were still discussing how to deal with the same person. 10,000 years ago, we were able to join hands and kill him. I can do the same now. I agree. Let's join hands and kill him, even if we don't care about our reputation. A total of 9 great emperors. A total of 9 late-stage great emperors. Could it be that we can't even deal with a heavenly ethereal stage cultivator? He's only at the early stage of the heavenly ethereal stage now. There's a huge gap between his strength and before. One after another, they spoke, as if they were already certain of their victory. However, no one held any hope in their hearts. Even if his strength far exceeded his, so what? All of them would have to pay a price more or less, even with their lives. At that time, it was not certain who would be the one to die. Everyone felt that it could be them. He was thinking of ways to greatly reduce the chances of him dying. Let the others die, while he still enjoyed the respect of everyone in the 10 Directions world in a carefree manner. Everyone was thinking the same thing, and no one was an exception. The longer they lived, the more they cherished their lives. No one valued their lives more than these people. It had even reached the point of madness. Other than themselves, they could sacrifice anyone, even their confidants and brothers. Even their own children could be sacrificed without hesitation. I have a pill here that can temporarily give people the strength of Great Emperor Rongtian. I'll take out these playful ones, and you guys send out some fearless Heavenly Palace realm cultivators. Let them go and test Qin Yu's strength a step further. This was already the best method, and a pill like this was worth a lot. That person took out quite a few pills, so the others didn't say anything else. They discussed and took out their confidants. No matter how bad they were, after operating for such a long time, they had many Heavenly Palace realm cultivators and their most loyal confidants. Not to mention Heavenly Palace realm cultivators, even Great Emperor Rongtian realm cultivators. There were also a few of them who were their students. If it was a matter of life and death, these people would definitely take action. Although they would not risk their lives for them, they would be able to perform extremely well at critical times. Qin Yu finally faced another test. A few false emperors. These people's strength was far from Great Emperor Rongtian. However, there was a huge gap between them and the heavenly palace realm. They could only use such a nondescript name. Their position was also quite awkward. They could not be accepted by any side. They actually sent people of your level. It's not that hard to guess, but I thought they might disguise themselves and test him personally. If that was the case, at least they could practice and familiarize themselves with it. However, it was expected that these people would be sent out. Even if they had accumulated tens of thousands of years of foundation, they could not casually send out Great Emperor Rongtian, even if he was only at the initial stage and had just advanced. However, he was still a highly respected Great Emperor. No matter where he went, he could control a martial region. In fact, most of the great emperors controlled more than one area. Instead, they controlled several relatively large and rich regions, which could even be called empires. How could an uncrowned king personally step into a dangerous situation? After all these years, you've become even more cowardly. You don't even have the guts to do this. You really made me think highly of you. Forget it. Even if it's just the few of you, if you join forces, it should be enough for me to practice. All of you, come at me together. Let me see if you can hurt me. He was simply too arrogant. Even if they were already mentally prepared, they still could not tolerate it. However, they did not know that it was completely out of Qin Yu's confidence in his own strength. It was not an exaggeration at all. Then take this. Let me see if you have the strength to provoke us. Sky Burning Fire. Sky Dragon Tornado. Two of them attacked at the same time. One was a sea of fire, the other was a huge tornado. It seemed like there was nowhere to hide. However, it didn't take long for a powerful light to erupt from both the sea of fire and the tornado. The huge airwave overturned everyone. A spacious area was formed around Qin Yu. All the trees and rocks were swept away in an instant, turning into fine powder. Cough, cough, cough. What's going on? You're the one who attacked, and you're asking us what's going on? I'm the one who wants to ask you. The few of them carried the flying dust and were momentarily blinded. They could only use their strength to quickly suppress the dust. Only then did they see that the two of them had attacked at the same time, but it was useless. Chapter 828. The two fake great emperors didn't hurt Qin Yu at all. Qin Yu was still standing in the same spot, but the dust in the sky didn't land on him at all. He was now completely immune to these injuries. You guys have already made a move. It's my turn to make a move, right? A bad feeling rose from the bottom of his heart. The few of them instantly sped up and retreated. However, it was too late. Even if they retreated, they couldn't escape the range of the attack. Qin Yu didn't kill all of them. He just wanted to use them as practice and try out something that he had never had the chance to use since it came to him. Profound Feather Heavenly Formation. This formation itself was quite powerful, but unfortunately, he had never had the chance to use it since it came to him. These people weren't even great emperors yet. However, they were still much stronger than ordinary Heavenly Palace realm cultivators. It was best to use them as practice. Let's try 10% of my strength first. Vast and boundless soul power slowly flowed out. A huge formation rose out of thin air, almost covering the sky and the sun. They just took a few steps back and couldn't escape at all. Don't panic. Since it's a formation, it can be broken. To be able to say such words, it seems that you have a way to break the formation. I've long heard that Zhenren Jiutian is good at breaking formations. It seems that the rumors are true. Seeing this huge formation, the few of them didn't panic. They all had a good attitude towards an old man with a white beard. This person was famous for his formation-breaking technique. Now that they saw this huge formation, although they were shocked by the aura, they didn't panic at all. One had to know that the most important thing to break a formation was to find the key. As long as they could find the core of the formation and destroy it, no matter how strong they were, they would be safe and sound. Breaking the formation with strength was the most inferior method. Since he was good at breaking formations, he wouldn't use brute force. This formation seems to be quite powerful. I hope that everyone can lend me a hand and help me break the formation. Of course, if you need any help, feel free to ask. I have something here. See if it can be useful. It's the same here. The few of them talked one after another, just discussing how to break this formation. However, they didn't care too much about Qin Yu and Dragon Soul, who were standing not far away. The root of the problem was still the problem of cultivation level. Once he swallowed the pill, he would be able to break through his original realm. These people were more or less prideful. Moreover, the difference between their realms was still huge. Every tiny difference seemed so insurmountable. Qin Yu had killed many heavenly palaces along the way, but after all, they did not witness the scene at that time. This was why he had taken this matter to heart. At this moment, this great formation was clearly more of a threat to them. An almost undetectable sigh was heard. What followed was a soft whisper that was almost inaudible. Looks like 10% of my strength isn't enough. Let's make it 30%. The formation was still operating, but the aura it exuded was even stronger. A dark ray of light suddenly joined the wisps of gray soul power. His weak soul power grew once again, and suddenly, it swelled to 2 or 3 times its original size. Only after obtaining the authority to control this great formation array did Qin Yu know exactly how powerful this great formation array was. Although it didn't pose much of a threat to him before, it was only because he had the power to restrain it back then. If he couldn't find a way to restrain it, the power of this formation was enough to be invincible among great emperors. The expanded and strengthened soul power already revealed some danger at this moment. But Taoist Jiutian was still thinking about where the weakness of this formation was. They hadn't encountered any fatal danger, so they naturally didn't think that this formation could really suddenly unleash its power and kill them all in an instant. Facing this sudden change, no one cared at all. It was also because of this moment of carelessness that they were suddenly attacked. The misty soul power condensed into arrows, and thousands of phantoms faintly appeared in the sky. Suddenly, they condensed in an instant and fell like raindrops with the speed of lightning. However, after this arrow rain fell, what splashed was not water, but blood. Look at what that is, everyone be vigilant, this formation is strange. Everyone dodge the arrows, if you can't dodge it, you're finished. What the hell is this thing? Why can't I shake it off? The arrows were condensed from soul power, and they carried a special power. Once they pierced into the body, they couldn't get rid of them no matter what. If they reached out to grab, they could only grab air and nothing else. After such a rain of arrows fell, they were all in a sorry state, but 30% of the power was still not enough to threaten their lives. Master, why don't you try using half of the power? The two of them didn't lower their voices. Previously, they didn't pay too much attention to it, but now that they were stimulated by this sudden trouble, it reminded them of the two people standing beside them. The Dragon Soul's words could be said to be impolite. Especially the information revealed by the painting, they couldn't help but be shocked. Half of the power forced them into such a sorry state, and they didn't even use half of the power? If this formation's power was fully activated, wouldn't they all be splattered with blood on the spot? For a moment, about 2/3 of the people wanted to retreat. But the remaining people were all loyal, and the people who could be sent out this time were all absolutely trustworthy confidants. Although they wanted to retreat, they still didn't leave in the end. Our goal this time isn't to kill them, but to test all their trump cards. Moreover, they are too arrogant. This gives us a chance to break the formation further. Everyone felt that this was right, and it was quite reasonable. Although there was a knife hanging above his head, it didn't seem like it was going to fall down at the moment. This caused them to have some wishful thinking. Who knows, they might be able to destroy the saber before it could fall down. Qin Yu stretched out a finger and changed a certain detail on the formation. A faint light flashed, and the entire formation began to spin faster again. A faint light flowed out as it spun, and a part of the soul power condensed from millions of souls was divided. Countless ear-piercing sounds were heard. Before they could react, Li Tianlan's eyes lit up. Countless beautiful pure white feathers fell faintly. But the moment before they landed, they turned into the sharpest weapon in the world. They easily cut through the special battle clothes on their bodies. They could only dodge in panic. But these seemingly ordinary feathers turned into blades, so they couldn't catch a trace. Chapter 829. These feathers were like the sharp arrows from before. Although they looked very real, they were constantly changing between illusion and reality. If one reached out to catch them, apart from their palms being pierced, they would not be able to catch anything. Countless dangers were hidden around them, but no matter what methods they used, there was no way to get rid of all these dangers in one fell swoop. They couldn't even touch these dangers, let alone deal with them. Taoist Master Jiutian, who everyone had high hopes for, was also helpless in this matter. This array formation was really too mysterious. Every detail looked natural. If he wanted to forcefully change some details, not only would he not be able to break the array formation, he might even bring greater danger to them. Just now, he had seen with his own eyes that some easily overlooked details in the array formation were changed, and then the array formation became even more powerful. If there was even the slightest mistake, then they would really die without a burial ground. They could still have some breathing room now, but it did not mean that they would still have the chance to breathe after the array formation was fully activated. As he looked at the array formation above his head, more and more wounds appeared on his body. Following the changes, his mood also changed. After a while, bean-sized beads of sweat appeared on Taoist Master Jiutian's head. They merged with the blood on his body, bringing him a sore and stinging sensation. Is there any way to solve this? We are already so powerful. Are we going to die with hatred? No. There must be a way. Let me think, as long as I think. These people were like rats crossing the street, struggling non-stop. Amidst the rain of pure white and beautiful feathers, Li Yunmu's eyes lit up. These people no longer had any room to struggle, even if they hid in time. But the blades formed by these feathers were almost everywhere. No matter how they hid, there would be wounds on their bodies. If this continued, sooner or later they would be exhausted one by one. Even if everyone knew who had done all this, they would not be able to do anything. But they could not struggle in the slightest, and they could not free themselves to deal with Qin Yu, who was controlling the array formation. The dragon's soul looked at the sorry state of those people, and was slightly eager to give it a try. Master, why don't you let me go up and try? Don't be in a hurry to use them to test the array formation's power. I feel that my innate ability seems to have made some breakthroughs. Can I use them to practice? After Qin Yu nodded, the dragon's soul rushed in excitedly. After he rushed in, the power of the entire formation seemed to have weakened quite a bit. However, it wasn't as if those blades didn't exist. However, some of the feathers wouldn't turn into blades. They looked and felt like ordinary swan feathers. It wasn't some extremely sharp blade that could kill people. However, the habit of being attacked before still made it impossible for them to face these feathers calmly. Especially when the feather was about to land on them, they wondered if it would suddenly turn into a blade. If the feather landed on their necks, it would be a fatal blow. In fact, this was not the greatest power. It was merely a small trick. The dragon's soul was like a fish in water. Because it understood this formation, it wasn't worried about the blades landing on its body. Suddenly, those people felt that the feathers around them were falling at a much faster speed. However, they still couldn't determine which one was a real feather and which one was a blade that could take their lives at any time. As the speed became faster and faster, it was already too late to dodge. More or less, there would be some real feathers or fake feathers that would fall on their bodies. If the real feathers didn't pose any danger, then it would be fine. However, the fake feathers would leave a deep wound on their bodies at any time. Becoming stronger didn't mean that their vitality would increase. If enough blood flowed out, they would die at any time. Now, there were enough wounds on their bodies, and their robes had been dyed bright red. They more or less felt dizzy. Their strength wasn't good enough, and their physical strength couldn't keep up at all. However, the feathers around them fell faster and faster. It was obviously no different from before. The biggest difference was the speed at which the feathers fell. However, they didn't know that their movements were very slow in the eyes of others. Every time they were cut by the blades hidden in the feathers, it looked like they deliberately leaned over slowly and let themselves be cut by the blades. Very good. It seems that you have improved. It was originally about 50 times faster. Now it seems that it has become nearly 60 times faster. The dragon's soul still didn't look very satisfied. Soon, those people suffered again. They felt that the feathers fell even faster. Even those who were familiar with formations, such as Jiutianjinren, now felt that there was a certain pattern to this formation. However, there was no way to grasp that pattern now. Because the speed was too fast, their brains couldn't keep up with it at all. Whoosh, ugh. One of them was wearing a blue robe. His eyes were wide open as he covered the wound on his neck in disbelief. However, while he was in a daze, several more blades landed on his body. One of them even landed on the top of his head. In the end, he could only die with hatred. His limbs fell to the ground, but the feathers wouldn't stop falling because of his death. Feathers accumulated on his body one by one. They gradually became as tall as a small mountain. They also completely covered this person's body. Are we just going to sit here and wait for death? Even if I have to fight with serious injuries, I can't die like this. Jiutian, you still haven't found a way to break the formation? If this goes on, all of us will die here. And the most important thing was that they still hadn't tested out their trump cards. Although Qin Yu and the Dragon's Soul were right in front of them, these few steps were like a chasm between heaven and earth. Jiutianjinren used to think that he was quite proficient in politics and politics. Even a great emperor might not be as proficient in it as he was. But now, he encountered a problem that he couldn't solve. This formation itself was very mysterious, so he didn't dare to touch it at all. Even after staying in this formation for so long, he still hadn't found the formation eye. Facing a life and death threat, he didn't dare to say that he hadn't found a clue yet. He could only keep reassuring. Give me a little more time. It will be done soon. However, no one knew how long it would be. Even he didn't know. Come back. It's time to end it. Chapter 830. Qin Yu called back the Dragon's Soul. This time, he used 70% of the formation's strength. Now, he finally unleashed the true power of this formation. Suppression. Even if they had forcibly raised their cultivation, they were just a few ants that could be easily crushed in front of this formation. It was as if the might of the great Tao had suddenly descended from the sky. With an absolute formation, everyone was smashed to the ground, creating 8 human-shaped pits. Even the person who had already died couldn't escape this suppression. They didn't even need to be buried. They had already become one with the earth. Ah! Screams of agony rang out incessantly. Under this powerful suppression, they couldn't even move their fingers, not to mention dodging, under the acceleration of nearly 60 to 70 times. Soon, all of them died silently in the huge crater that was created by their bodies. After that, the suppression didn't hold back at all, until the surrounding ground was ruthlessly pressed down. Several people's corpses were completely buried. Only a piece of solid ground was left. Not long after, a very lush weed grew out of this piece of ginger. It covered all the exposed ground. Let's go. Qin Yu and the Dragon's Soul disappeared from this piece of land. Not long after, the great emperors found out that the people they sent out had died. However, they were able to survive until now because of their own method. Although it sounded a little impossible for the entire army to be wiped out, they had long expected that such a thing might happen. As early as when those people set off, they had an extremely special shadow recording stone with them. To a certain extent, it could preserve the scene before they died. Of course, it was from their own perspective. Therefore, the 9 great emperors saw an extremely shocking scene. Separated by a thin, illusory image, they seemed to be able to feel the power that suppressed the world. This is really too terrifying. How confident are you that you can defeat this formation? It seems that it's not completely impossible to break the formation, but this speed is really too fast. If I were to do it, I'm afraid I wouldn't have much chance of winning. Then, everyone fell silent. Even if one of them did it personally, they wouldn't be able to do better. This meant that this formation had the power to crush a great emperor. Wasn't this what they were most afraid of? No one would want to die unless it was someone else who would die. Only then would they dare to take the risk. For a moment, everyone was quietly sizing up the people around them. Scheming about who would die first was the most cost-effective and most beneficial to them. At this time, Qin Yu and the Dragon Soul had already arrived at a rather strange martial field. This world was called the Beast Region. Almost no one could be seen. All that could be seen were all kinds of strange orcs. These people have the blood of other races in them, but they also have the blood of humans. In other words, monsters born from different races are all here. Qin Yu nodded and continued walking. The entire street was filled with people of all shapes and sizes. Or a birdman with a bird's head and wings. Or they were crawling on the ground with a long tail. They seemed to have the bloodline of crocodiles. There were also a few blurry figures in the sky. They seemed to be people who could fly. If you walked to the water's edge, you could even see people with fish heads swimming in the water. Of course, there were similar creatures on the street as well. The cat-faced woman looked to Qin Yu with a somewhat curious expression. "May I ask if you're here to buy something? I have everything here." Behind the Catwoman was a beautifully decorated shop. Although it looked grand on the surface, it was actually filled with a few useless trinkets. Still, there were some interesting things. There were glowing divine moon stones. There were also backwater mirrors that could record images. However, these things had no value at all. They were all placed on the counter, each and every one of them marked with an exorbitant price tag. There were a few customers inside as well. They all looked rather complete. Occasionally, however, they would reveal some beastly characteristic. For example, long fangs with tiny holes. Or perhaps it was someone's long tail that flashed past. The vampire bat and the metal stone monkey were actually standing side by side, safe and sound. This was the only place where one could see such a magical scene. "I don't want anything." After Qin Yu said that, he continued to walk forward without looking back. This place did look magical, but it didn't mean that it was a pure land. Even the seemingly ordinary shop from before had extremely special existences. Many of the things on it were stained with the smell of blood. It was obvious that they didn't come from the right way. But what did that have to do with him? He was just passing by. Not long after, the people who were chasing him arrived as scheduled. But this time, those people didn't even have the time to get close to Qin Yu. They were all taken care of by those seemingly harmless orcs. Only then did Qin Yu pay more attention to them. These guys who looked neither human nor ghost actually had their own unique talent. Compared to ordinary people, they all had some beastly advantages. For example, a monkey's balance and agility. Another example was a guy with fish head legs who could easily hide in the water. They even had very good teeth that could easily tear their prey apart. All in all, they more or less inherited some beastly characteristic. Some had advantages and some had disadvantages, but as long as there were disadvantages, there would definitely be advantages. In this aspect, everyone did very well. A big man with a dog's head walked over. He first put away the weapons in his hands to show that he was friendly, then spoke. You have a lot of strange smells on you. Those people must have left something on you. If you think it's troublesome, I can help you get rid of the smell. But I heard that you have a lot of good things on you. Can you pay me a part of it as compensation? After all, you know that we have to be paid for doing these things. Otherwise, how can we feed our families? I still have some puppies at home that need to be raised. This was a very magical world. Of course, they were also very straightforward. Without so many twists and turns, Qin Yu was also very happy to pay this sum of remuneration. Of course, he didn't notice that there was any strange smell on him. However, he still believed in the dog's sensitive nose. If this dog-headed man dared to lie to him, he wouldn't be able to live for long. Chapter 831. But in the end, he accepted a special method to get rid of his scent. The dragon soul was shocked to find that it couldn't detect Qin Yu's scent at all. It didn't matter whether or not he had a strange scent. At least for now, the reward was very satisfactory. The final result was somewhat unexpected. Qin Yu's scent was completely concealed. After all, I'm a kobold. The only advantage I have is my sense of smell. Apart from that, I don't have any other advantages. So, I can only think of ways to use these advantages to support my family. It can't be considered a great ability. In any case, as long as you're satisfied, this wasn't just satisfied. The materials the kobold had spent on him were almost directly proportional to the price he'd paid. In other words, the kobold didn't have much to gain from this. Even the materials he'd identified were relatively precious. The price the kobold had asked for wasn't high either. It was just a small toy. Take this dragon bone back. It's not bad to use it as a material. You can do whatever you want with it. After all, it was a dragon bone, and its quality wasn't low. Since it was a kobold, it would probably need some meat and bones. However, he didn't have any suitable bones on him. If he had to talk about bones, he only had a few dragon bones, and they definitely weren't low quality. Every single one of them glowed with a brilliant golden light. They were even more valuable than many of the treasures he had. Of course, in his hands, it was just an ordinary bone. After taking the bone, the kobold quickly discovered that it was different. Since he had some of the characteristics of a dog, he naturally preferred to chew on bones. He could clearly sense that if he completely devoured this bone, he'd break through to the next realm. He would break through to another level and even change his bloodline to a certain extent. He might even cleanse it of impurities. In the beast region, it was actually very simple to determine who was stronger. You just had to look at their appearance. The fewer beastly characteristics one had, the more powerful one was. Some were even the lowest of ordinary people. Most of their bodies weren't much different from beasts. As for the stronger ones, they didn't look much different from ordinary people. There were only a few unique features on their bodies, and as long as they wanted to, they could hide them with some clothes at any time. Thank you. This bone is very useful to me. If you need any help, just let me know. Although my strength is not at the top, I like to make friends. At least in this place, my words still have some influence. This bone was too useful to him, so even though he knew he was being greedy, he wasn't willing to return it easily. He could only make some promises, even if he knew that these promises were weak and powerless. However, this was really nothing to Qin Yu. He gave the bone only because he didn't want to accept this inexplicable favor. Moreover, he would soon leave this place and would not stay here for long. However, he was wrong. Those people were much more decisive than before. It had only been less than 10 days. Those people who were killed by them had just died, and in less than 2 days, they had already chased them out. Moreover, they had personally joined the battle. Alone? I alone should be enough to deal with you. After all, the gap between the two of us is still very obvious. The person who came stood with his hands behind his back, giving off an awe-inspiring aura. His wide sleeves fluttered in the wind as he stood on top of the mountain, giving off a righteous aura. Just by looking at his appearance, no one would know that this person was actually that kind of despicable person. That's why the biggest taboo in this world is to judge a book by its cover. Qin Yu's voice was low, and he was already prepared not to let this person go. Since he came, he might as well stay. From the very beginning when he first appeared, or perhaps even earlier, he had opened his eyes. The grudges between the two of them were already destined, and it was also destined that only one of them would be able to live. Lin Feng, the debt from many years ago, we should properly settle it now, right? Those things that you did in the past, even if so much time has passed, you still have to pay the price. Lin Feng, Great Emperor, didn't know whether this sentence was true or not. After living for so long, he cherished his life more than anyone else. It was simply impossible for him to die. Of course, he knew that it was impossible for him to survive against Qin Yu, and he also knew that to him, the number 2 position was taken by his people. He would only be at ease if it was someone else who died. However, it was obviously not possible now. Among everyone, his strength was the weakest. All these years, he commanded the wind and clouds, and he only relied on his benevolence and virtuousness. If those things back then were to be exposed, there would still be a portion of people who would choose to support him. However, his foundation would be greatly damaged, and his strength was the weakest, so he naturally had to be the first to take the lead. This was the law of the jungle, and it was also an unwritten rule between them. Whoever was the weakest would be the first to die. Anyway, as long as it didn't concern them, they could completely throw everything to the back of their minds. One person? Qin Yu sneered. If it was only one person, then who were the few people who had been hiding in the dark? Those familiar auras, even if 10,000 years had passed, he would definitely not forget them. After all, it was a death grudge, and his memory wouldn't be that bad, and he wouldn't be so muddle-headed as to mistake someone. Lin Feng faintly felt that something was not right. Now, he could roughly guess that Qin Yu must have sensed those people hiding in the dark. However, he had no choice but to do so. If they didn't take this opportunity to kill Qin Yu, in that case they wouldn't even have the slightest bit of face left. They might even die in front of everyone. How could a lifetime of reputation be destroyed in a day like this? Today, it's either you die or I die. As he said this, his eyes flashed with viciousness. What he did many years ago, it didn't mean that he couldn't do it again today. Even if he could revive many years ago, would there be a second chance like this? Then the heavens would be too kind to him, Qin Yu. Qin Yu didn't want to talk nonsense with these people. There were some people who couldn't be reasoned with at all. Only by suppressing them with strength, and making them completely clear-headed was the best choice. Xian Yu Heavenly Array. This was the famous array of the Xian Yu Heavenly Emperor, so they naturally recognized it. Previously, they didn't recognize it at first sight because this array had been partially altered. Now that they saw the true identity of this array up close, it also made them understand that someone had already become the past. Chapter 832. If they were not careful, they would end up the same way. If Qin Yu does not eliminate them, all of them will die. Moreover, they can only become history, the past that everyone talks about. Die. Qilin slashes the heavens. At the same time, the people who had been hiding jumped out. He had used his most powerful technique. Soul-devouring guide. Boundless world. Ancient god shatters. Purple emperorly fire. Kanlisha. Countless moves covered the sky and covered the earth. All kinds of lights flashed, and the entire area became a deserted place. Under the powerful collision, a huge whirlpool was formed. It engulfed everything in its surroundings. Everything was crushed in an instant. There was no one around. Not to mention a person, other than the great emperors, there was not even a fingernail-sized rock. All they could see was a pile of yellow sand. The sand calmed down as the whirlpool disappeared, falling to the ground and covering everything. Is he dead? Lin Feng stood up pathetically, no longer looking as impressive as when he first appeared. But no one dared to give him a definite answer. It was like seeing a corpse before, but the person was standing in front of them after 10,000 years. Not even a drop of blood could be seen, let alone a corpse. No one dared to give a definite answer. He should be dead. Lin Feng repeated over and over again, as if this was the truth. Under the impact of such a powerful force, no one would be able to survive. Even if we were in the middle of that attack, we would be smashed to pieces and not a drop of blood would be left behind. The power of 9 great emperors attacking at the same time. If there were no immortals, then the power just now would be the strongest in all 10 worlds. No one would be able to survive under such a powerful siege. Especially when all kinds of power gathered together, forming a huge whirlpool that could break a hole in the sky. How could they not die? Master, why did you leave just like that? We have the power to fight back. Although they are very strong, it's not like we don't have enough power to fight them. If we really fight, we have the ability to win. Qin Yu looked at where those people were. His robes fluttered in the wind, making whooshing sounds. The sound of the wind was in his ears. Even the dragon soul's voice was blown away by the wind. It was a little blurry. Why bother with them now? Anyway, the agreed time is right there, and everyone knows about it. They want to fight me at this time so that they won't lose face. Why should I satisfy their request? Qin Yu was able to see it even more clearly than anyone else. It was precisely because of this that he did not choose to fight with them at this time. If that was the case, wouldn't it satisfy their demands? Qin Yu naturally wouldn't do something that would harm himself and benefit others. His plan had yet to be completed. Let's go. Along the way they encountered quite a few things. Even if it was a little troublesome in the beginning, after he became famous, those who were not strong enough would not dare to provoke him. Later on, everyone even knew that the 10 Directions world had such a powerhouse. He could easily challenge those of a higher realm. Although he was only at the heavenly ethereal realm, even the great emperor was not his match. As the rumors spread, a legendary story actually spread. The dragon soul heard the exact whispers of those people on the street and couldn't help but twitch the corner of its mouth. I'd better clarify for you, Master. What kind of nonsense is this? There's no need to clarify. Even if one is clarified, there are still 2, 3, and countless others. There are so many rumors like this. They don't care about the authenticity, they're just making up stories. Qin Yu had expected this, so he didn't care about these rumors. As long as they didn't reach his ears and didn't cause him any trouble, it didn't matter at all. However, for the dragon soul, it was still somewhat unacceptable. They should be taught a lesson. Qin Yu smiled and didn't say anything. He didn't bring the dragon's soul around aimlessly. If someone connected all the places he had walked, they would find an extremely special pattern. This was a secret method that he had accidentally learned a long time ago. As long as he drew according to a specific pattern, something special would happen. As for what would happen, it was completely related to the size of the pattern, the final time it would take, and even luck. He used to just want to create a qualified battlefield, so he took the opportunity to use this method. As for what would come out in the end, it was unknown. It was said that it had a lot to do with the strength and martial skills of the drawer. 3 days later, Qin Yu returned to the original point where he set off. The entire pattern was drawn. At the very center of the entire pattern, suddenly, a giant pillar rose into the sky. At the same time, such a pillar of light rose everywhere Qin Yu walked. However, compared to the one at the very center, the other places looked like mere shadows. Such a big movement quickly attracted the attention of everyone in the 10 Directions world. No matter which martial field people, they were extremely concerned about this. Among them, The powerful ones even arranged the affairs of their sections. They came out of seclusion to take a look. Qin Yu only stood here for a while, and countless experts of the Heavenly Palace came after hearing the news. The Heavenly Ethereal Realm experts could only stand on the periphery and could not get close. As time passed, more and more real experts came. The Heavenly Ethereal Realm experts were everywhere, and the Divine Realm experts were inferior to dogs. The Heavenly Palace experts had already gathered in a large circle around the only real light pillar. The aura of the great emperors was also faintly discernible. Only the most powerful people could sense their existence. There were a few acquaintances among them, but Qin Yu did not greet them. Now that enough time had passed, the 1-month deadline was getting closer and closer. Qin Yu raised his qi, and every word he said was enough for everyone in the martial field to hear. The light pillar in front of you is the place I chose for the appointment. I don't know what will happen next. Everything is unknown. Maybe there will be endless opportunities inside, or maybe there will be fatal dangers inside. And I will always be waiting inside, waiting for the 9 great emperors to come. Hearing this, the people who heard this had different thoughts. Some people were deep in thought, while others were eager to try. This light pillar was so extraordinary. If there was an opportunity, it must be a monstrous opportunity. Chapter 833. However, every resource in this world was accompanied by great danger, and there were always gains and losses. There were still some people who had not arrived, but under everyone's gaze, the pillar of light suddenly turned into specks of white light. After the huge pillar of light disappeared, the shadow of a huge door hidden under the pillar of light was revealed. A huge blue vortex faintly formed the shape of a door. This aura is so unfamiliar. May I ask which expert can recognize the origin of this door? Whoever knows the origin of this door, I am willing to pay a lot of money. No one was stupid. What was behind this door? They knew nothing. At least for now, it was a completely unknown place. In the unknown, although there would be endless wealth waiting for them to excavate and harvest, there might also be many dangers. Qin Yu looked at the door with a deep aura that suddenly appeared and was slightly lost in thought. Everyone else had forgotten about this aura, but he still had a slight impression of it. This was the long-lost ancient region. But it was only a legend from long ago, and there were probably very few people who could recognize it. If he had not seen it with his own eyes, he would have thought it was just a rumor. But now that he saw it with his own eyes, he knew that it was the truth. The legendary martial region did exist, and it appeared in front of him in this appearance. The legend is not clear, and I don't know what is inside. Are we still going in? The dragon's soul was just being cautious. This was a completely unknown place. Even if they were the ones who summoned this passage, they could not determine whether it was safe inside. Everything inside was unknown. Even the summoner did not know what was inside. Like everyone else, they only knew half of it. They only knew one more name than others. The unknown place is more interesting. There is no need to worry. It is because it is unknown that it is more interesting. Qin Yu took the lead and stepped in. He stepped across the entire vortex of shadows with one foot. A dark light flashed in front of him, and suddenly he was standing in the void. There were specks of starlight around him, and he seemed to be within reach. There was nothing under his feet, but it was enough for him to walk on as if he was walking on flat ground. If he quietly turned in a circle with his head down, his center of gravity would still be stable, as if he was still standing on flat ground and did not turn in a circle. The mystical nature of this martial domain was truly breathtaking. When he turned around, the door was no longer there. Someone else should have come in behind him, but he couldn't find them anywhere. There was not a single living creature in sight. The dragon's soul quickly went to check. Not long after, it came back with an ugly expression. There's no aura of any living creatures around here. It's just the two of us. I don't know where we are. Maybe we were just sent to a random place. I didn't see any entrance or exit, nor did I see anything special. Although those starlights appear to be very close to us, no matter how close they are only specks of starlight. Qin Yu didn't say anything. He slowly extended his hand forward. There was a pea-sized star over there. It looked extremely real. Moreover, it was no different from all the stars in the surroundings, and it was merely ordinary and blended into the crowd. However, just as he was about to touch it, time and space were in turmoil. It created some small ripples. The dragon soul's innate ability allowed him to sense things more clearly, so he didn't dare to let his guard down. He cautiously observed his surroundings. There's no need to be so worried. This is just a place similar to the eye of the formation. Something might happen later, but there's no aura of danger yet. It shouldn't be a bad thing. The turbulence in time and space became even more intense, and there were already some cracks. The dragon soul was even more shocked. Time and space were one of the top forces in the world. If time and space were to be in turmoil, it would be very dangerous. If time and space were to crack, it would be the destruction of the world. As they were standing right next to the crack, there was no difference between distance and distance in time and space. No matter where they hid, they couldn't avoid this turbulence. The small crack slowly expanded until it became a huge abyss. At this moment, as if sensing the turbulence outside, the two little azure dragons were a little uneasy and even wanted to come out. Qin Yu tried to stop them, but he also felt the sorrowful aura of the two azure dragons. In the end, after hesitating for a moment, he released the two little azure dragons, allowing them to swim uneasily in this extremely spacious area. The crack gradually expanded. In the incomparably deep depths, there seemed to be an extremely terrifying existence that was clamoring to devour everything. The crack grew bigger and bigger. Countless stars were sucked into the crack, helping it to grow. However, even if the new city around them was attracted by the huge crack, their position was still stable. Or it could be said that only the two little azure dragons, Qin Yu and the dragon soul, were safe and sound. New cracks were still appearing in the surrounding time and space, and these new cracks would quickly grow into huge cracks in a short period of time. As more and more cracks appeared, the stars in the entire world gradually disappeared until it became nothing. All the cracks connected together, and the entire world was completely destroyed, turning into countless fragments. Before the entire world turned into fragments, the cracks kept devouring everything that could be devoured. However, after the entire world turned into countless fragments, the cracks stopped devouring. They even formed some kind of mysterious connection with these fragments. As if following some kind of rule, the fragments of different sizes gradually gathered together to form a floating island. The place where Qin Yu and the dragon soul were standing was above a small fragment. Even if everything was so real, as if it was within reach, they were in two completely different time and space, and would not have any intersection. This should be some history from a long, long time ago. Legend has it that the ancient land of antiquity is a rather magical place. There are as many resources as the sea and as many treasures as the mountains. Even though there were many dangers, this land gave birth to countless great emperors. But I don't know why it suddenly disappeared without a trace. But no one can find a trace of it. Now it seemed that it had suffered a great disaster at that time. Although it was not completely destroyed, it had turned into fragments. The time and space were quite unstable, so of course, no one would find this place. If it were not for a small accident, no one would have discovered this place that was independent of time and space. Chapter 834. At some point in time, green sprouts began to grow on the lifeless fragment. At this point, the scene stopped completely. Then, it instantly rewound and returned to its original state. Qin Yu still didn't understand what the ancient remote region was trying to express. Was it just knowing a part of the past? Then there was no need to let everyone know about the past. Since he knew some of the past and saw the scene, there should be something left behind. The dragon's soul also tried to touch the ordinary-looking little star. But there was no feedback, and the strange phenomenon did not appear a second time. There's no need to try. It should be a one-time thing. This is just a special little mechanism. If someone discovered it, they would see the scene they saw just now. The little star that disappeared from the crowd suddenly broke away and slowly floated in a direction. Although it seemed slow, it was extremely fast. There was no reference in this place, and everything seemed to be very slow and small. But in fact, it might be very big. It might also be extremely fast. If it was outside, it should be so fast that it would be difficult to catch it with the naked eye. However, this place was too magical, and it produced all kinds of seemingly impossible scenes. After arriving at the place, they discovered. This place turned out to be the most complete and largest fragment of the previous fragment. There was nothing special about it. It was just a few small stars gathered together and moving according to some unique method. Suddenly, the surrounding scenery began to slowly change. And in the center of those small stars, there were also some unfathomable changes that were taking place that no one could see clearly. A huge eye appeared. It was more than twice the size of all the stars in this world. The voice came from nowhere. It was neither male nor female, old nor young, and it was not in the prime of life. But this voice, which seemed to be extremely soft, kept echoing in the ancient remote region. You have passed my test. You are the only ones who have passed my test in this countless time. What do you want from me? As long as it is not excessive, I can satisfy all of it. It sounded very good. Just by passing the test, they could obtain countless benefits for free. The most recorded things about the ancient remote region were all kinds of rare treasures, countless resources, precious materials, and so on. Everyone's impression of the ancient remote region was that treasures were everywhere. If other people heard this, they would definitely be impatient to get what they needed. Perhaps it was some rare treasure in the world, or perhaps it was an extremely powerful weapon. Qin Yu was different from everyone else in this world. He knew that if he wanted to obtain something, he would have to pay a price. What if I want to obtain this entire world? Including you. From now on, you will listen to everything I say. You are not allowed to resist in the slightest. If I tell you to harm yourself, you will have to obey. How about it? The huge eyes stared fixedly at the tiny person in front of him whom he had never paid any attention to. There was clearly a huge difference in size between the two. Even their auras were completely different. However, Qin Yu was extremely calm and composed. Even when he made such a request, he did not panic. Those eyes seemed to have seen through everything, including all his plans. This request is too much. I've said it before. As long as it's not excessive, I'll satisfy all of your requests. Qin Yu didn't say anything. He took out the Chaos Dragon Spear. Do you want me to use my strength to break the lies you've carefully created? For example, all of this is fake. It's just an illusion that you've created with your remaining strength. I don't care what you are. Since I opened this entrance, it must be under my control. The huge eyes fell silent. The strange and ethereal voice no longer came from all directions. For a moment, the air seemed to have frozen. It was extremely quiet. In this strange space, there wasn't even a trace of wind. If one ignored the extremely shallow breathing, one would even think that this was just a painting that was too realistic. After 2 hours, the voice appeared again, but it was no longer as ethereal as it was at the beginning. Instead, one could clearly feel that the source of the voice was the location of the huge eyes. I can satisfy your request. Your strength has indeed shocked me. And you are a smart person. But before that, I need you to do something. Otherwise, I will never acknowledge you. Even if you open the entrance, I can forcibly close the entrance and kick all of you outsiders out. It seemed to have compromised. The huge eyes took a step back and gave up a part of its request. Qin Yu just shook his head. The dragon's soul was ready to attack. I think you've made a mistake. Now is not the time for you to give up. This world is now under my control, including you. You don't have any choice at all. Either you reveal everything, and perhaps you still have a chance of survival, or I can only destroy you first, and then slowly explore. Extremely powerful strength had already gathered on the Chaos Dragon's spear. As long as he wanted to, he could unleash it at any time. This huge eyes was just a guy who looked good but was useless. Its strength was even inferior to the Sky Palace. Suddenly, space and time trembled. Tiny cracks appeared, and an extremely powerful suction force came. This sharp suction force seemed to have a purpose. It was only directed at Qin Yu and the Dragon Soul. The Dragon Soul was shocked and wanted to quickly take Qin Yu away from the range of the suction force. However, Qin Yu just waved his hand gently. Don't worry. It's just an illusion. And the truth was as such, it was merely an illusion. This was a power that seemed to be able to destroy heaven and earth. It merely brushed past them. Even though the feeling it gave them was incredible, they didn't approach that massive crack. The huge eyes let loose a strange howl. Suddenly, countless powerful beings appeared. Furthermore, they were all powerful beings from Qin Yu's memories. Looking at the familiar faces, some of them were already dead. Some of them were still alive, but their whereabouts were unknown. Just like in his memories, these people unleashed one powerful attack after another. They gradually clashed in the air, fused together, and then exploded again. Countless powers that either reinforced or countered each other came crashing down at the same time. No one would be able to escape from such a powerful attack. However, Qin Yu noticed that Star Luo and Xian Tian Shenzhen were not among these people. Chapter 835. The strongest was only the Great Emperor. As expected, there are still restrictions. It must have taken you a lot of effort to create so many people. Since I can defeat these people once, I can defeat them a second time. The current him was already extremely powerful. There were very few opponents in the entire 10 Directions world. Even if one or two people who were strong enough to be his opponent occasionally appeared, it was not impossible to defeat them. If he could deal with these people once, he could naturally deal with them a second time. Azure Dragon battling the heavens. Qin Yu entered and exited the crowd 3 times. Each time, he would inevitably reap a few lives. These people would appear again soon. When they appeared again, their strength would become even stronger. But he still became braver as he killed. Until the end, it gradually became a little strenuous. Qin Yu's eyes flashed with an extremely excited red light. All of you die. Blood Sea Dragon might? The entire world seemed to have turned blood red. The great emperor died. Countless experts instantly turned into countless mountains of corpses and seas of blood. This was completely absorbing the experience of blood and blood, forcefully comprehending martial skills in battle. How is this possible? Your strength is only what? You actually forcefully broke through during the battle, and now you have reached the Sky Palace. How is this possible? How can such a genius appear in the world? You are a monster, a human-shaped monster. A huge eye roared that a person was a monster. If one ignored the danger contained in this scene, it would look quite funny. Qin Yu casually wiped away the few drops of blood that accidentally splashed on his face. Although he knew that this was just an illusion of nothingness, the breakthrough brought about by the battle was also real. If he didn't guess that all of this was just an illusion, he would definitely treat this as a real world, because whether it was smell or touch, even the warm feeling of blood spilling on his face, it was all incomparably real. Even if he knew that all of this was just an illusion, he would still be in a trance for a moment, as if all of this was real. Between you and me, who is the monster? What other methods do you have? You shouldn't be able to take out a stronger person. The great emperor is already the strongest person you can create. There's no way to go any higher. Those who appeared again and again after their deaths were at their strongest. Although it was said that there were occasional enhancements, the enhancements were only in areas such as technique. However, his strength could not be improved any further. The more Qin Yu fought, the more excited he became. In the end, he even increased his strength again. Currently, he had already achieved his goal of gathering 9 great emperors, even if he hadn't actually fought with them yet. However, he already had enough confidence that he could completely crush them when facing them. Those people would never be a match for him, and his strength had already reached the heavenly palace. From the early stage of the heavenly ethereal realm to the early stage of the heavenly palace realm. Although it seemed like he had directly jumped a major realm, it might cause his foundation to be unstable. However, he was able to suddenly jump a major realm. This was a sign that his foundation was stable. The giant eye still refused to believe that this was the truth, even though it had seen it with its own eyes. Could it be that he suffered a backlash? It's impossible for all of this to happen. Instead, it's as real as an illusion. The dragon's soul curled its lips. Only this one-eyed monster would say something like that. Was it as real as an illusion? These words were somewhat contradictory, but to the giant eye, this was his understanding of illusions. Only illusions could be so real that they were perfect. The giant eye had mastered the pinnacle of illusions. The tip of the Chaos Dragon's spear started to gather power slowly again. After his strength had broken through another major realm, his strength had become even more powerful, almost multiplying. He felt an extremely powerful aura that was enough to completely destroy him. The giant eye chose to surrender without hesitation. In the end, he chose to submit. Otherwise, he would have no other choice. This will be the best choice you've made. I'm not interested in anything you have. I only want to improve my strength. The giant eye quickly turned the starry sky they were in into a grassland with soft sand and green leaves. On the grassland, there was a huge pile of resources that could improve one's strength. It was almost like a mountain. The huge amount of resources added together was enough to make a heavenly palace realm emperor. If it was another heavenly palace with the mountainous amount of resources, one could reach another peak realm. Moreover, it would allow him to become the strongest expert in the 10 Directions world. However, Qin Yu and the dragon's soul used it at the same time. The mountainous amount of resources disappeared quickly. It didn't take long for the huge amount of resources to disappear completely, and they had only broken through to the middle stage. Monsters, monsters, they really are monsters. And they're 2 monsters. Why didn't the 2 of you explode with such huge amount of resources? The more resources the giant eye took out, the more frightened he was. Logically speaking, if such a huge amount of power was absorbed by the same person, he would definitely explode and die because of too much power. Even the most powerful person couldn't bear such a huge impact of power at the same time. But the truth was right in front of him. Qin Yu and the dragon's soul not only withstood the huge impact of power, but they were also like fish in water. Everyone knew that going too far was as bad as not going far enough, but this saying seemed to have no effect on them. The resources that could be used to improve cultivation in the entire ancient nether region were not as abundant as the legends said. But they were still very huge. One after another, mountains of resources appeared. They disappeared again. Then the cycle repeated. Finally, after the last group of mountains of resources turned into a pile of powder, the giant eye really couldn't take out any more things. What he had left were some scrap metals that had no value in the eyes of Qin Yu. Of course, each of these scrap metals was enough to shock the world, but there were no particularly valuable divine weapons among them. Since there was nothing particularly valuable, he didn't care about what he had. I'm a little curious, how did you create such a realistic illusion? The true appearance of the giant eye was actually a small beast the size of a palm. But the strange thing was that this palm-sized creature only had one eye, which happened to grow in the middle of the entire face and occupied 1/3 of the entire face. Its mouth and nose seemed to have degenerated and were almost too small to be seen. Illusions are actually some kind of power, and I was born with it. One-Eyed knew all the past of this world since he was born. Chapter 836. He was born on the largest piece of land, and other than him, there was only some useless grass left in this world. He usually ate grass for a living, and other than that, he wandered around aimlessly. His greatest interest in life was to change all the details, as if this world was still complete, and it was the most beautiful starry sky. My duty is to protect, but there have been some changes recently, and I feel that I can't protect it anymore. My main job is to stop some guys from the depths of the abyss from coming in and destroying the place where I live. But you also know that my strength is not very good, and I can only trap them with illusions. At most, I can only make them kill each other. There was no problem at first, until one day. That day was no different from usual, although there were still some guys that he hated climbing up from the dark place. But as long as he concentrated on controlling all of them, there was absolutely no way for them to come up. This time, they did not scatter, and the leader of them was holding a book. This book would spread a kind of black fog, enveloping them, and the illusions would no longer work on them. I really have no other way, except for the illusions. I have no other means of attack, so I have to find someone to help me. Just when I was most distressed, I suddenly found an entrance that connected to the outside world. You know what happened after that. I didn't expect you to find the key as soon as you came in. Until now, no one else had realized that it was just an illusion. He even thought of all sorts of ways to search for treasures. Some stubbornly thought that they were unlucky. Some of them had always been on the path of searching for treasures. A small number of people had doubts about the illusion he had created, but they did not find any loopholes. One-Eyed asked, "How did Qin Yu find out that the illusion he had painstakingly created was not real?" Actually, it's very simple. If you look carefully, you will naturally find the loopholes. The biggest loophole of your illusion is that it's too perfect. But it ignores the problem of these people's thinking, so they have doubts. It's just that you have designed all the senses too perfectly, so they haven't found any loopholes for the time being, but with the passage of time, they will definitely find it. He didn't know what those annoying guys from the abyssal chasm were. However, it should be different from humans. Otherwise, One-Eyed wouldn't have not learned from this experience and lesson until now. Furthermore, there was a black fog. For some reason, he felt that she looked somewhat familiar. According to Qin Yu's suggestion, One-Eye added some improvements. For example, it was possible for them to bump into each other. Another example was the design of some space nodes inside. If one happened to encounter these spatial nodes, they would arrive at a fragment of a continent that seemed to be real. At the same time, they would obtain a part of the historical scene. At that time, they would be completely convinced. Presumably, as time passed, they would only sink deeper and deeper into the abyss. That's good enough. Qin Yu was not stingy with his praise. Of course, a part of it was his doing. During this process, he had already grasped the rudiments of how to create illusions, especially when it came to setting up such realistic senses and details. Although he wasn't proficient in it, there wouldn't be any problems. Of course it's good. I put in a lot of effort. It's quite tiring. When Qin Yu frequently fought with others, he had already noticed some of the shortcomings of the mysterious feather heavenly formation. It didn't have enough lethality. For example, the reason why it could suppress several fake great emperors in one fell swoop previously. It was only because the dragon soul had accelerated the flow of time. Otherwise, it could only suppress and not kill the enemy instantly. If he wanted to increase the lethality, he had to make some modifications. The illusions were part of it. He had already decided to integrate the heaven-battling god formation. If all of these characteristics were integrated, the power of the formation would reach a whole new level. All of this went extremely smoothly. Not long after, the new formation was completed. From then on, there would no longer be a mysterious feather heavenly formation in this world. There would only be the heaven-battling god formation. Does the agreement we made before still count? We agreed that you would help me do something. I can feel that those guys are coming again. Every time they come, they will destroy a few fragments. I don't know what they want to do. But if they continue to do this, I won't have a place to stay. Qin Yu told One Eye not to be anxious for the time being. Since it was not something that happened in a day or two, there was naturally no need to be anxious. Even if he was anxious now, it would not change the current situation. He came to an abyss. If he looked down from above, he would only see a deep and seemingly endless darkness. It was as if there was a bottomless abyss below, emitting a thick, ominous aura. According to One Eye, it was not like this at first. It emitted an ominous aura. Since the day he was born, this world had become much more stable. These huge cracks would not have any interaction with the fragment. The two were peaceful until those strange guys appeared. Then, there was a change. Qin Yu just so happened to have encountered this ominous aura not long ago. At that time, someone had summoned a pitch-black thick door. It seemed to be something from another world. If there were no accidents, the door should be connected to a place in the ninefold God realm. As for the ominous aura, it might be related to the so-called god of darkness. In the illusion, Luo Shan paced slowly on a relatively small fragment. Looking at the deep cracks around him, he did not know what to do. Where did the others go? I don't know where the great ancestor is. Maybe they are still in the same place as before? Luo Shan hesitated, not knowing if his guess was right or wrong. He had been here for a while, and there was no way to accurately distinguish time in this place. For those who were powerful, time was nothing to them. However, no matter how good Luo Shan's talent was, he had only reached the celestial venerable level in a short time. Moreover, in addition to the effects of all his talents now, he also had the advantage of being in the calamity realm for many years. Because he was already familiar with it, it was quite easy to break through. He insisted on following because he wanted to repay the favor. However, it was a pity that his strength was nothing in this place. Chapter 837. At that time, when he came in, many ancestors of the major forces had already entered, and at least the heavenly palace. Forces like them happened to be close, so they could let their juniors come and inquire. Moreover, they were also responsible for their own lives. No one knew what dangers there would be inside, so there were only a few people who were willing to come in. He also made up his mind to come. At the same time, there were also some people who knew Qin Yu in various places. Because of various reasons, they stepped into the illusion. At the same time, several peak experts stepped in. These people, if Qin Yu saw them, he would definitely recognize them. These were the few who attacked him back then. Now, it was the few people who received the challenge letter who were provoked in public. There was naturally no need to mention the anger in their hearts. Those who knew about this matter all treated them as a joke. Although no one dared to laugh at them openly, there were many who laughed at them in private. Someone has already broken through my illusion. Now I'm leading it into a new illusion. Wait a moment. Heavens, why did so many experts suddenly come in? 1, 2, 3, 15, 50, 60. My God, there are actually 18. One-Eyed quickly told Qin Yu about this matter. Currently, they were grasshoppers on the same boat. Now that he had recognized Qin Yu as his master, he could not betray him. If he betrayed him, he would not have a good ending. Qin Yu knew that this was probably all the top experts in the entire 10 Directions world. This was also expected. With such a big commotion, those top experts would definitely be able to arrive in the shortest time possible. Even if there were some people who stayed in remote places, they naturally had all kinds of methods to arrive. As for coming in at the same time, that was also a kind of tacit understanding. But for the time being, he did not need to care about these people. Even if they saw through the illusion, so what? Knowing that this was an environment did not necessarily mean that they could break through the illusion. Set it up more perfectly. At present, they have already had doubts, so there is no need to make any authenticity. Let them meet occasionally and set up some huge rooms. Let them slowly find people floor by floor. These people only needed to be trapped temporarily. There was no need to kill them all, nor was there a need to release these people. One-eyed obediently obeyed the order. Using this method indeed saved a lot of trouble. Moreover, those who were more powerful did not try to force their way through after entering the monotonous rooms. In case they didn't know where to look for her, One-eyed had specially set up some clues for them, and he almost threw the clues directly in their faces. As long as they searched the houses one by one, they would find the others sooner or later. As for whether he could find it or not, it would depend on his luck. This was because the houses were densely packed, one after another, with floors after floors. Of course, it was impossible to find so many people in such a short period of time. Moreover, this house could, to a certain extent, isolate them from probing. In other words, other than searching house by house, they had no other way. Unless he destroyed all of this. But in that case there would be other dangers. Things had come to a happy end. No matter what, these people would definitely be delayed for a while. One-Eye's heart was filled with admiration. This matter was resolved so easily. Originally, he didn't have any ideas or clues. Sure enough, the master was the master. He really didn't misjudge him. To be able to escape from the illusion in the first place, he really wasn't an ordinary person. He had completely forgotten how he called him a monster before. The speed of Qin Yu's breakthrough shocked him. A group of dark creatures with two huge curved horns on top of their heads. Their whole body exuded a stench, and their eyes were completely blood-red. Their skin was bluish-gray, and there were many wrinkles. These wrinkles were piled up with layers of dirt. The source of the stench was none other than these. This kind of creature that climbed up from the abyss had no hair on its head, and not a single hair could be found on its whole body. Its two arms were extremely wide, but its palms were of normal size. Its legs were strong and powerful, and its feet were like palm leaf fans. When it walked, it couldn't even stand up. It bent down slightly, looking at everything with cruel and greedy eyes. Suddenly the world spun. Everything in front of them didn't seem to have changed, but they had already entered the illusion. This kind of creature didn't seem to have high intelligence, but they were already very familiar with the feeling of the world spinning. They gathered in groups of 2 or 3 and whispered to each other. After a while, the strongest and tallest abyssal creature took out a book. He flipped through the blank pages, and suddenly, a sinister black fog appeared. Within it, a vigorous figure was faintly discernible, and its scales were slightly reflecting light. The aura of the Dragon Clan. Qin Yu immediately stood up and straightened his back. If it was really the Dragon Clan's bloodline, then he had the opportunity to break through to the Great Emperor realm. The abyssal creature was actually related to the Dragon Clan. He originally thought that it was related to the so-called God of Darkness, but now it seemed that the God of Darkness might be this evil dragon. A series of profound words came out from the abyssal creature's mouth. Every word was extremely cryptic. It seemed to imply some kind of rule. It made the listener feel dazed, and it was very easy to fall into a mysterious and profound state. This is the dragon language. It seems that there is indeed the Dragon Clan's bloodline causing trouble. I just don't know what kind of dragon it is. Just from these 2 incidents, it should be very powerful and even has a group of believers. The opponent this time is definitely not easy to deal with. The more Qin Yu spoke, the more excited he became. The more difficult it was to deal with, the more powerful it was. When the time came, it could bring him more. Accompanied by the dragon language, an extremely dense black fog rose from the pages of the book. It enveloped all the abyssal creatures. Then, this huge black fog slowly moved. It even broke away from the influence of the illusion. It had always been walking on the most correct path. And wherever this black fog passed, all life was extinguished. The thick layer of grass on the ground turned into yellow sand that filled the sky. It didn't take long for the large fragment to become a land of death. There are many places like this. That's why I'm anxious. I can't let this continue. Otherwise, these guys will definitely destroy the land that I live in. Qin Yu had already seen with his own eyes how cruel these guys from the abyss were. Wherever they passed, all life was extinguished. It was conceivable that if they were given enough time, the ancient remote region would completely become a land of death. Chapter 838. Translator. Endless Fantasy Translation Editor. Endless Fantasy Translation. It would be fine if it was just an ordinary matter. However, there was something fishy about it. These creatures from the abyss were all powerful. Even the weakest among them was at the Sky Palace. Qin Yu suddenly asked, "Do you know why they are doing this?" "I don't know why, but they won't stay for long. It seems like they want to drain all the vitality and turn the entire ancient remote region into a land of death. They all came from the deep crack, but they have to go to the forbidden area before returning. These fellows came very easily. They could come from all directions. As long as there was a black crack, they could appear at any time. However, it was not so easy to return. Anyone who wanted to return had to go to the forbidden area mentioned by One-Eyed. In that case, they were also bound to a certain extent. They could not come and go as they pleased. For the time being, Qin Yu was not in a hurry to kill all of them. After these creatures of the abyss died, new ones would appear soon after. Since there was no other way, he would kill them all at once. In that case, it would be better to be patient for now. At the very least, the ancient remote region would not become a place of death until a year and a half had passed. Don't be in a hurry to chase all these guys out. At least we have to find out why they are doing this. Only then can we prevent the same thing from happening again. Although he was not in a hurry, he had to find out what was at stake. Only by catching the culprit could he completely prevent this from happening again. Especially since it was related to the Dragon Clan, Qin Yu was quite interested. The dragon's soul could not figure out what kind of realm the existence behind this had reached. If they added up all the clues they had, the Dragon Clan behind this should have surpassed the strength of everyone in the 10 Directions world. As for why they chose the ancient remote region and not other places, it should have a lot to do with the environment here. Even if they were powerful to a certain extent, they would be limited by the rules. This was unavoidable. The unique environment here provided excellent conditions for the Dragon Clan behind this. Allowing them to come in and plunder recklessly, they must have thought that there was no other value in this place. However, Qin Yu felt that there should be other reasons. The evil dragon's brutality should only be one of the reasons. Plundering the vitality could be to increase their strength and accumulate a strong foundation. It was also possible that he wanted to use this huge amount of vitality to do something else. He had already checked the grass growing on the ancient remote region world. It was not an ordinary thing. Although it did not have any special effects, it was very. The leaves were plump and thick, and could be easily broken with a light force. A light green, fragrant juice would flow out. Although the grass did not have any special effects, it had one advantage: its vitality was its vitality. It was it. Was, is translation translation. Is translation translation translation. Is translation? Translation is translation translation. Translation it translation 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 is translation 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 is translation 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 translation. That's strange. Why would an evil dragon collect large amounts of life force? The translation is that? The is level. Is life? Translation is translation is translation? Is. However, all evil things always liked those that were darker, such as the flesh and blood of corpses, or negative emotions that were born under certain extreme circumstances. To them, vitality was something they did not like. If there was no special purpose, no evil creature that lived in the darkness for a long time would want to collect this kind of thing. Through One-Eye's unique eye, Qin Yu saw the ancient remote region world's fragments that had been plundered and leveled up, leaving behind only some dust. When these fragments of various sizes were gathered together, they formed a vast world. Even if it was just a bit of grass, when all of this energy was gathered together, it was a power that could not be underestimated. Let's go, take me to the Forbidden Region. The so-called Forbidden Region was a massive abyss. Compared to other places, this place seemed to be more stable. There was no ominous aura seeping in either. However, it was wide enough. At least on the surface, it did not seem very different from other places. If it was just a bit wider, it would not be enough to be called a forbidden region. This place is a bit strange. Stairs will appear every once in a while, and there will be roars coming from below. But if you want to go down, you will be pushed aside. Only those who came out of the abyss can pass through here. But they seem to have to use some kind of method to get in. Qin Yu merely listened quietly. However, he understood in his heart. With the Blue Dragon clan as an example, it was not difficult to guess what had happened here. It was probably an extremely powerful person who used some kind of method or accident to tear the space apart. In the end, these deep abysses were left behind. However, the place where the Blue Dragon clan used to be had turned into a sea. Those cracks slowly disappeared during this process. However, the ancient remote region did not seem to have these abysses because of some kind of accident. It was more like it was connected to a certain place, so a passage was opened. So much so that after countless years, it was still on the verge of breaking. And this so-called realm should be a key place. The biggest secret of the entire ancient remote region must be hidden below. But there is no way to go down. There is always a powerful force above, preventing everyone from going down. Although I can go anywhere, this is the only place I can't go in. There is no way to break through these barriers. Qin Yu did not take these things to heart. They could not break through, but it did not matter. There was a group of people who could help them. A passage was opened. One-Eyed was still confused, and it could be seen that he knew nothing about common sense. In addition to his excellent talent in illusions, there was nothing special about him. And his instinct to protect the ancient remote region. There was nothing in his mind. These common sense things were completely foreign to him. The dragon's soul had already thought of it. Although they could not go in, One-Eyed had said before that those abyssal creatures could only leave through here. Those who came out of the abyss must have a way to enter and exit the forbidden region. At the same time, in the illusion, the great emperor had basically found all the others and gathered them together. Chapter 839. Translator. Endless Fantasy Translation Editor. Endless Fantasy Translation. All the great emperors had gathered. Thus, they joined hands and broke the illusion completely. No matter how intricate the illusion was, they could still break it if they tried to break it with their strength. Such a huge, illusory realm was not something that any one of them could break through. He had to find all of them and work together. Only then would he have a chance to escape from the illusion. Ashes to ashes, dust to dust. Sect Master Tang, let me help you. Me too. A white-bearded old man in a white robe sat cross-legged on the ground with his eyes closed. His fingers kept changing as he made different hand seals. He was speaking at an extremely fast speed. Everyone could only hear a buzzing sound. They could not hear what he was chanting. Heaven and earth return to their positions, break all spells. Open. Fine cracks began to appear on everything around him that looked extremely real. Just as the white-robed old man finished his last word, the illusion changed drastically. The entire illusion had undergone a great change, and before one eye could repair these cracks, the illusion had already been completely broken. Even the small illusion that enveloped the others was broken. After the illusion was broken, the white-bearded old man spat out a mouthful of blood. His spotless snow-white robe was stained with red plum blossoms. Sect Master Tang, are you okay? Eat this. I'll help you heal your injuries. The white-bearded old man shook his head. His injuries were not serious. However, he had to bear the backlash from the broken illusion. The illusion was very magical. Logically speaking, the person who cast the spell should be the one who suffered the backlash. However, the person who broke the formation was the one who suffered the backlash. He was so heavily injured because he was caught off guard. Thank you for your help this time. If it was just me alone, I would not have been able to break the illusion in such a short time. I thank you on behalf of everyone for your help. The group of great emperors looked at each other. They even politely pushed all the credit to Sect Master Tang. They were all people who had reached the highest level. No one would embarrass themselves. After all, it was obvious to all who had broken through the illusion. If Sect Master Tang did not help, even if they worked together, they might not have been able to break the formation so quickly. Moreover, Sect Master Tang was heavily injured because of this. No one would fight for this credit. Only 9 people in the crowd immediately started to pay attention to their surroundings. All of them had a sense of crisis in their hearts, and they came here with a different purpose than the others. Perhaps the others wanted to obtain all kinds of opportunities. However, they were more because of Qin Yu. Rather than waiting, it was better to attack. That way, they might be able to take the initiative. At the moment, no one. But at the very least, no one was willing to die, and no one was willing to throw away everything they had. Especially now, with such a huge commotion, there was no one in the entire 10 Directions world who didn't know about them. Their faces had long been known by everyone. There was nowhere. Qin Yu, who was being. And he was with the dragon ever since the illusion disappeared. The huge black fog that shrouded these people had also disappeared. It seemed to be spiritual and could sense everything around it at all times. The black fog was there to break the illusion. Once the illusion disappeared completely, it would return to the book. Qin Yu took a step forward. At this time, he had already stepped into a distance that was enough to alert the abyssal creatures. Simple and cryptic words came out of his mouth, one word at a time, incomparably clear. Who allowed you to come here? A few abyssal creatures gathered together and whispered. The tallest one among them stood up respectfully and knelt in front of Qin Yu and the dragon with a plop. Her voice was also that of a dragon, but it sounded a little awkward. Her pronunciation was not pure. She probably did not learn it well. We are one of the countless collection teams under Dark Shinran. If we have offended you, please forgive us. The companions behind me are not qualified to learn the language of the Dark Dragon God. Back then, I risked my life to find a crystal. Since then, the Dark Dragon God specially let me learn the dragon language. Qin Yu had a thought. If that was the case, these abyssal creatures should have their own place to live. How many people like you have learned the dragon language? Qin Yu's voice sounded a little unhappy, and seemed to be full of contempt. There was also some disdain hidden in it. Sure enough, after hearing this tone, the leader of the collection team bowed deeply and prostrated himself on the ground. He answered in the most sincere and respectful tone. There are not many people like me. Under the Dark Dragon God, there are less than 10 people who can receive such a favor. But the leader of the collection team was not very strong. If he could receive such favor, who knew how powerful the other people who had received the so-called favor would be? He originally thought, if they were really related to the ninefold divine realm, their strength would be extremely high. But now, it seemed that there was another question mark. Qin Yu's tone was even more displeased. With your strength, you're really too weak. I don't know what kind of luck you had to learn the dragon language. This was a further step of probing. It was also a probe of the enemy. The leader of the collection team did not set up any defenses. He pushed out everything he knew on the board. That's a green crystal the size of a fingernail. Nearly half of it is faintly transparent. Having asked up to this point, Qin Yu did not continue to ask. After all, anyone would become suspicious. If he asked too much, even the abyssal creatures, without much wisdom, would feel a little strange. After all, how could a big shot not know anything? He still had to ask people of low status like them. The dragon soul on the side knew that it was time for him to appear. He was not just standing there for decoration, but also a kind of deterrence. Speaking of which, I haven't seen the dark dragon god for a long time. It's been thousands of years now. I just happened to pass by. Why don't we go and take a look together? The dragon soul's dragon language was also the purest. It was far from what the so-called abyssal creatures could compare to. The people of the collection team over there heard this conversation and felt uneasy. They had only heard such a pure accent from the dark dragon god. Even the dark dragon god guardians. No one could speak such a pure pronunciation. After all, everyone knew how obscure and difficult the language of the dark dragon god was, and there were countless mysteries in it. Every sentence could contain an extremely powerful force. Chapter 840. Translator. Endless Fantasy Translation Editor. Endless Fantasy Translation. There was a dragon god guardian who relied on the dragon language to master great power. Moreover, those who mastered the dragon language had quite a status. But even so, other than the dragon god, they had never heard such pure dragon language. It was as if the dragon god was right in front of them. The captain had no doubts about the conversation between the two. But he never thought that the two lords would mention him again. His strength is not bad. Why don't we let him lead the way? He hasn't walked for many years and is a little rusty. With his strength? It's too bad. He's not qualified. Qin Yu refused without thinking. The dragon soul said from the side, to be able to learn the dragon language, he obviously has good potential. All right then. After that, they returned to the forbidden area. And there were many people gathered around. Dozens of people suddenly appeared in the originally empty place, and a little further away, there were more than 100 people. The fundamental reason was because some layers of transparent stairs had appeared in the forbidden area, like a dream, spreading deep into the forbidden area. Roars could be heard from below. Then there was a fierce collision, as if the mountains were collapsing and the earth was cracking, but not a single fragment shook, as if these were just illusions. However, the people in the collection team were a little anxious when they heard the noise. In a language that Qin Yu and the dragon soul did not understand, they got together and spoke anxiously for a while. In the end, the captain gave the answer. Of course, he used the dragon language. There are many souls in the Holy Land. That's something that already exists in this world. These guys have brought us a lot of trouble, but the dragon god said that this is actually a test that he deliberately left behind. Only those who can safely enter and exit from the countless souls are qualified to join the collection team. When he said this, the leader of the collection team did not have the slightest fear. He even felt very honored. However, Qin Yu discovered another secret of the forbidden area. One-Eyed said that it was a forbidden area, and he could not get close no matter what. However, for these abyssal creatures, it was a holy land. As for the so-called test, he definitely couldn't fully believe it. It seemed that there was no way to solve it, so he casually found some excuses. As for the countless souls below, apart from the souls of those who had died before the destruction of the ancient remote region, there was nothing else. However, he didn't know how many souls were left behind. According to ancient records, the ancient nether domain was once prosperous. It gathered all the treasures and resources in the world. Almost every day there would be people searching for opportunities and breaking through. In other words, there might be countless extremely powerful existences inside. Even the soul of a great emperor could remain intact in this place. Qin Yu and the dragon's soul looked at each other. It seemed that the so-called Black Dragon God was not omniscient and omnipotent. Otherwise, he might be able to solve these problems. Judging from the information he had received before, the Black Dragon God cared a lot about these collected things. It didn't matter if it was vitality or if it wanted to collect something else. Clearly, only by getting rid of these countless souls would he be able to increase his speed. Only then could he truly increase his efficiency. But these countless souls still existed, and the Black Dragon God could only rely on that place. As an entrance, there could be countless exits, but there was only one entrance. It is indeed very troublesome. Is there no way to solve it once and for all? Those fellows are all gathered together over there. The leader of the gathering team suddenly knelt down in the void. There was nothing there, just a huge abyss. This is the will of the Dragon God, and it is also the test of the Dragon God for us. I will always believe in the Dragon God and dedicate everything I have. Every difficulty in this world is a test given to us by the Dragon God. And all we have to do is to dedicate everything we have and peacefully get through the difficulties. This time, things were really a bit tricky. Although these abyssal creatures were not very smart, unexpectedly, their faith was very devout. It was faith, although it looked more like some kind of belief. It was as if everything else in the minds of these guys had been erased. It also injected them with the thoughts of the only supreme God, the Black Dragon God. Often, guys like this were the most difficult to deal with because it was impossible to get anything from them. They could abandon everything for the so-called Dragon God, for the so-called belief, and be fearless. Let's take one step at a time. The Black Dragon God must have a purpose for doing all this. To find a group of the most loyal subordinates for himself? Or a tool that will never have to worry about betrayal? This shouldn't be his ultimate goal. Qin Yu's gaze seemed to be able to penetrate the void. Through the incomparably deep darkness, he saw balls of light hidden under the darkness. Clumps of grayish mist were the souls of countless living beings. At this time, there were already circles of people around the forbidden area, and those who were closest were the most powerful. But even with their hands, there was no way to break the barrier. Whether it was using brute force or finding a way to break it, it was useless. The voices inside gradually subsided. The stairs that were completely built by the mysterious power also slowly dissipated. It was as calm as before. But the same thing. No one could go in to find out. It was even impossible to get close. That was because that force was simply too powerful. It was so stubborn that everyone was helpless. The captain suddenly took out the book again. He silently turned to the page that could summon the black fog. There seemed to be an endless amount of black fog hidden in that small picture. After being summoned, it suddenly descended and enveloped all of them. However, it suffered a setback on the side of Qin Yu and the dragon soul. No matter what, the black fog couldn't get close to the two of them. It was only because the aura was too strong that if it got close, the black fog would be damaged. A blank area appeared in the thick darkness. It was quite conspicuous. So far, the captain of the collection team still didn't doubt it. Instead, he was full of amazement. He carefully probed and asked them to withdraw part of the power in their bodies. Qin Yu slowly withdrew the power that was leaking out of his body bit by bit. Compared to releasing the power in his body, it was more difficult to withdraw it bit by bit. In the end, the leaked power was very little, and only a thin layer was attached to his body. It was like a thin layer of gauze. To be able to do this, one's control of power had to be at the peak of perfection. The dragon's soul quickly learned from Qin Yu and slowly withdrew the power that was leaking out of its body. But it couldn't do it so meticulously. The layer of power that was attached to his body was as thin as a piece of cloth, as if he was wearing another piece of clothing. Chapter 841. Translator. Endless Fantasy Translation Editor. Endless Fantasy Translation. Black fog descended and shrouded. The thick black fog isolated everyone from the outside world, but in the next moment, everyone was enveloped by it, and it became transparent. The dragon's soul almost lost control of the power in its body. It tried to disperse the black fog. Qin Yu, however, stops his hand and lightly shakes his head. It was not the time yet. Moreover, he could feel that the black fog shrouding them did not have any malicious intent. Although it was still emitting a thick, ominous aura, they still needed to use the collection pair to enter the abyss and see the situation first. If they made a move now, they would expose their identity. Furthermore, everything they had done before would have been for naught. The dragon's soul forcibly retracted the power it was about to unleash. Its face became quite ugly. In Qin Yu's sight, the black fog began to become transparent, and finally, it was as if it did not exist at all. No wonder the abyss creatures could move freely when they were shrouded by the black fog. Because this thick black substance would block the vision of the people outside, but for the people inside, it was as if it did not exist at all. A cloud of black fog descended from the sky, and of course, it attracted everyone's attention. What is this? This aura, it's extremely ominous. This aura is somewhat similar to the aura in the cracks before. They should be of the same origin. Of course, they were of the same origin. Standing in this thick black fog, not only was their vision not obstructed, even their hearing was amplified. Every small conversation of these people would be transmitted to their ears. The abyss creatures' expressions did not change. Obviously they were already used to it. Suddenly, under Qin Yu's attentive gaze, he took out a circular title plate that was emitting a black mist. There was a big token written on it. The other side was blocked. It was impossible to see what it was. The captain muttered to himself. After he finished speaking, he suddenly threw the token in his hand into the air. The wisps of black fog on the token suddenly turned into a piece. As soon as these wisps of fog came into contact with the invisible barrier above the abyss, there was a crackling sound. It was as if there was an intense collision. The abyss creatures skillfully arranged themselves according to a unique pattern. Each of them stood in their own position. At a rate visible to the naked eye, the invisible barrier was slowly opening. The people standing in the black fog could clearly see that a huge hole had been melted into the translucent barrier, and this huge hole was slowly expanding, becoming wider and wider. Roars and cries of shock and anger rang out incessantly. Standing in the black fog, everything was no longer an obstacle. What the naked eye could see was the most real thing. Countless specks of light turned into blurry shadows. Some were in human form, while others were in the form of various beasts. There were even tree shapes. However, such existences were extremely rare. Amidst the overwhelming number of soul shadows, there were only one or two extremely special cases. However, it was clear that these soul shadows had all lost their rationality. Their faces were either ferocious or greedy, or excited or smiling. Perhaps they were filled with hatred, or perhaps they were mad. None of them were peaceful. Moreover, all of them had lost their rationality. Not a single one of them was clear-headed. If I can absorb all of them into the heaven-suppressing battle god formation, its power will definitely increase greatly. Currently, the suppression of the soul power within the array formation. They all came from the innocent lives that profound Feather Emperor had taken in the past. These souls were all absolutely clear-headed. However, their actions were uncontrollable. Their every move was restricted by the array formation. Qin Yu had already promised them that when he became more upright, he would release all of these living souls. After all, they still retained their rationality. If tens of thousands of living souls that retained their rationality were all used as tools, it would be too cruel. There were even some whose bodies were still alive. However, their souls were restrained. What was the difference between this and harming human lives? However, if all of these souls were released, the power of this array formation would decrease. It would even become extremely weak. It would no longer have any power to speak of. But now, he seemed to have found countless substitute. If these tens of thousands of souls that had completely lost their rationality were all absorbed into the array formation, even if all of these living souls were released, the power of the array formation would only increase and not decrease. At this moment, the collection of the souls had been completed. Although the people outside could not see through the black fog and see the true source, however, they could still sense the changes through personal experience. Moreover, those fluctuations were so obvious, it was impossible for them to escape the detection of a great emperor's cultivation. That transparent barrier has disappeared. Was it caused by the sudden appearance of the black fog just now? What the hell is in there? I seem to have heard some noise again. It's soul power. There is an endless amount of soul power hidden in there. It's as big as the ocean. I haven't touched the edge yet. Who can help me explore it? Among these people, all of them were top-notch experts. Their vision was not something that ordinary people could compare to. It didn't take long for someone to recognize the soul power. However, they still couldn't see the countless clawless souls. These people were in the middle of arguing and didn't notice that the black fog had moved again. It had already entered the forbidden area before them. One-eyed had been hiding in the dark and hadn't appeared. Apart from the forbidden area, he could see everything that was happening in the entire ancient lagoon region. Of course, he also knew that Qin Yu and the dragon soul had entered the realm with the abyssal creatures. However, he had no intention of showing himself from beginning to end. If he had to submit to someone, he would still be a little unwilling. At this time, he was extremely conflicted. On one hand, he wanted Qin Yu to solve these problems. That way, he wouldn't have to worry about the ancient lagoon region becoming a land of death. That way, it would eventually cease to exist. However, on the other hand, he didn't want Qin Yu to solve everything unscathed. Otherwise, he would no longer have any room to resist and could only become a pet in the hands of others. Submitting meant giving up everything. Even his life would no longer belong to him. At the critical moment, he would even have to bear everything for his master. Although One-Eyed didn't have much common sense, he knew that it would limit him in every way. He wouldn't even have a little bit of self-awareness. He would do whatever his master told him to do. He would no longer have any dignity and could only become a puppet in the hands of others. However, he didn't want to leave the ancient lagoon region. Therefore, he was very conflicted. It was because of this conflict that he didn't immediately stop Qin Yu and the dragon soul. He wasn't sure what was in the forbidden area, but it definitely wasn't just a group of harmless souls. You're tuning in to the Phoenix Knights YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.